My apologies.
Christine, are you good? Okay. In accordance with Section 5 of the Open Public Meetings Act, be advised that a notice of this meeting was made by posting on the bulletin board in Town Hall and forwarding to the officially designated newspapers that this meeting would take place at Town Hall at 7 p.m. on Tuesday, December 21st, 2021. Meeting details and the draft agenda were also posted on our township website. Please all stand to salute the flag.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Roll call vote, please.
Ms. Miggins?
Here.
Ms. Stahl-Eglo?
Here.
Mr. Vinayak?
Here.
Deputy Mayor Wasserman?
Here.
Mayor Prupus?
Here.
Thank you.
Thank you. I would like the Township Committee to consider revising the agenda this evening. I recommend Ordinance 2595-21 regarding prohibition of rooftop decks and Resolution 21-335 be moved to before our reports. May I have a motion to approve the agenda as revised?
So moved.
May I have a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. May I have a motion to approve the October 5th, 2021 regular Township Committee minutes?
Motion.
May I have a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
May I have a motion to approve the October 5th, 2021 special Township Committee minutes?
So moved. Oh.
May I have a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Ms. Miggins is scheduled to sponsor Ordinance 2595-21.
Mayor, at this time, Ordinance 2595-21 concerning the prohibition of rooftop decks, which was passed on first reading at the public meeting of December 7th. I recommend the committee take additional time for further review on this topic and that the Township Committee consider a motion to withdraw the ordinance on second reading this evening. Accordingly, I request that the mayor entertain a motion to withdraw Ordinance 2595-21 and Resolution 21-335.
May I have a motion to withdraw Ordinance 2595-21
Motion.
and Resolution 21-335? Sorry. Yeah.
Moved.
May I have a second?
Second.
A roll call vote, please.
Ms. Miggins?
Yes.
Ms. Stahl-Eglo?
Yes.
Mr. Vinayak?
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Wasserman?
Yes.
Mayor Prupus?
Yes. I would
Thank you.
Thank you, Christine. I would just like to recommend that any legislation on the rooftop decks be thoroughly reviewed by the committee and public before it is considered for formal introduction before the Township Committee. So I know that there's been a lot of conversation about what happened offline and online, but I just want to make sure that everyone knows that we are going to have more conversation before another introduction of the ordinance takes place.
Mayor, would this be the time to ask to remove something else from the agenda?
I think that was already supposed to happen,
Oh,
but what would you like?
Well,
to remove from the agenda?
the second reading for ordinance 2594-21 about the loading zones.
I like to.
May I finish, Mr. Vinayak?
Sure.
I think that should be removed under the same procedural. I know the rooftop decks is being removed for, I'm not sure the exact reasons, but I believe that procedurally, as I stated at the last meeting, having such an important ordinance, which is in essence changing our zoning law,
done in in this emergency fashion at the end of the year without having time for the public to come in and talk about it, without having the full respect that any important ordinance should have, should also be tabled and brought up again next year and have the full procedure of what we've always done in the past, a meeting in between presenting an ordinance and then having a second read for passage. So I would like to suggest that we table this. As I said, the last meeting, same 5 of us next year. We could discuss this in the proper historic way that ordinances have been passed.
I think you, at this point, would be setting forth a motion to,
Yes.
I'll second that motion.
Now can we, if she's done, I need to comment first.
I think there's a little bit of procedure here in the sense that you had amended the agenda to move that ordinance and the resolution up to before your reports. And that was motioned and approved by the Township Committee. Then you took action on that. Should you want to consider ordinance 2594-21, you would have to take that same procedure to make a motion to move that.
I think that's what she's doing.
Okay.
That's it. I might not have worded it in
But
that
before
fashion.
it goes to the motion, there was a comment made and I was
Wait, I
asked
think
to
I
just
second it
wait.
and then we discuss it,
for-
Sanjeev.
Okay.
Sanjeev,
That's
I
correct.
think I second it. So, and now we can have a discussion about
Okay,
it. Okay, so, and Mr. Falcon, good evening. Is that Mr. Falcon?
Yeah.
Right.
No.
It's not though. It's so hard to see you and you have no mask on.
Oh, can you hear me?
Yes, I looked over at your seat. I'm like, wait, we have no attorney in the room. Nice to see you.
No,
Okay.
unfortunately, someone in our office just this afternoon came down with a positive COVID test. And so I felt that would be more appropriate for me to keep my distance.
Yes, thanks, Kit. Thank you. Okay, Committeeman Vinayak, we're discussing.
so we had the same discussion last meeting as well. This is not a new ordinance. This was discussed earlier, went back to planning board. They gave their input. We made the changes, it went back to planning board, so it has been going on for a while now, and I support this, and I would like to move on with this. That's my comment.
Does anybody else have any points of discussion before we take a roll call vote on amending the agenda?
I would like to, one more comment. You have discussed with planning board. This is the first time the public is hearing it, and there's not that normal meeting in between where the public could have spoken during open public comment. So I feel procedurally, this is not being done in the fashion Millburn Township has always done things, and it should be tabled and given its fair vote next year with a meeting in between introduction and final reading for passage.
Thank you, Ms. Edmund.
You're welcome.
Okay, is that, anyone else have any points of discussion? Okay, so a roll call vote, please. Voting.
Yeah,
We are voting to,
Table this.
we are voting to remove this from the agenda tonight. Okay, Christine, a roll call vote, please.
Ms. Miggins? Ms. Stahl-Eglo?
Yes.
Mr. Vinayak?
No,
Deputy Mayor Wasserman? Mayor Prupus?
No. Okay, moving on to reports. Committeeman Vinayak, do you have any reports for tonight?
no, Mayor, I'm good, thank you.
Okay. Deputy Mayor Wasserman, do you have any reports?
Yes, Mayor, I do. I just wanted to report on flood mitigation. We've made quite a bit of progress on flood mitigation. We're announcing tonight that there's going to be a public session where everybody is invited to Zoom in on Wednesday the 12th at 8:30. Alex, just to clarify, we cleared the date
Yeah,
on January 12th.
Yeah.
Yeah, January 12th at 8:30.
In the morning?
In the morning, and it'll be open to the public, and we're going to encourage everybody to join us. In addition to that, we've gotten a lot done. There are those 3 drainage projects that have been discussed literally for years. And I think we're hopefully at a point where we're going to engage and get those drainage projects started. And the other thing that we really want to work on is that the STIL program from the state, which really relies on our residents having federal flood insurance. This is also a program that's really vital to our community, and it's something that we really want to work on. We've been in touch with Mr. McKeon's office. He's also been attending. His office has been attending our flood mitigation meetings, and this is a very big goal for the flood mitigation committee to get this done. So that's flood mitigation. In terms of the SID, I want to report that the SID board has passed its 2022 budget at the November meeting. The budget will be introduced at the Township Committee on January 18th. There will be letters of assessment from our tax assessor going out to property owners on January 28th of this coming year. And also the SID public hearing for consideration will be on February 15th. So we just want to throw those dates out. And also on a lighter note, I also wanted to send out a thank you to Wendy Misan for her excellent work for the mud bowl. She's done extraordinary work. They raised, I'm not rattling off the numbers, but she worked so hard and was able to raise money for businesses that were outside of the SID, and she did a tremendous job. So I just want to give her a shout out. And those are my reports.
I have a question about flood mitigation. So I know back when we approved it with John Rushke, I'd wanted him to come and talk to us tonight. So, I mean, do we have a sense of timing about when any of the work will actually get done? When you talk about the drainage projects, I mean, when is he coming back in January? Is he ready to report to us? He's been working on this for 2 months now.
Yep.
2 months? Yeah.
So, I would say in January, he's going to give us, he'll give the Township Committee update. And in terms of the 3 drainage projects, we're working closely with John and with Kit and with Alex. And I think
So where are we
I think
with the approvals from the
Well,
residents?
I think the next step, Alex,
With
maybe
their
you want to address
Easements?
this.
Alex, can you fill us in on what's going on?
So Alex, this drainage process, John Rushke more than likely is not that much involved. It is the township first getting the approvals from the residents. And the
But
flood
I started that in
mitigation team
October.
overall,
That-
it's working on making this happen. Now, I'm just trying to say, in this drainage program, I don't think John Rushke has been
So what
doing
did
the
we
work
task
solely.
John Ruskey to do in the beginning of November? We awarded John Rushke a contract. What has he been doing since then?
So flood mitigation team has been meeting.
Yeah.
And we are deciding, we have
So
toured
John
the
Rushke hasn't
facility.
done anything yet?
He
Oh,
has
he
come
has.
with
He's been
us, so
working.
he
We have
is
a
a part of the
contract.
team.
We have a contract with them, and he has goals in his contract, and he has tasks that he's completing, and he will give us a full update, potentially. at
Mr.
our next
McDonald,
meeting.
you're on the flood mitigation committee, right?
I am.
Great. Do you have any input on terms of what Mr. Rushke has completed or done, or what is he working on?
So I think at this point, Mr. Rushke has been supporting the Flood Advisory Committee in their discussions about the direction that they want to go.
So no
So-
decisions have been made yet. He has
I
not
think
given
you're hearing
any
the decision.
direction.
I think you're hearing the decisions tonight in terms of the drainage areas.
But
And that,
Sanjeev just said that that's not his work. That he's not doing the drainage.
So here's the thing, I think we're jumping ahead. With the flood mitigation team, first of all, is the knowledge and understanding of the fact what really needs to get done. So last 3 weeks or last 3 meetings, we have gone through places. We have had flood mitigation stealth program meeting with the other town, with the residents.
Right.
And we have had the meeting for other stuff last week, I guess. I wasn't a part of the last meeting.
What was the other
But-
stuff?
Again, as I said, I wasn't the part of the last meeting,
Okay.
but there was a meeting that happened.
Okay.
So with all that,
Is someone taking
This is
minutes
where-
on the flood mitigation
let
meeting?
me finish, please, Mayor.
Okay.
So with all that, Mr. Wasserman just finished his thing of saying that these are the three things we are going to focus on. And if these are the three things we are going to focus on, that is the direction the team is going to go into. So John Rushke is not going to work on something which we haven't given it to him yet.
Okay. So we signed his contract in the beginning of November. Now, I know, Alex, we went out in October to the residents to start getting did the letter ever get sent out? Did they get a response in terms of easements and people going onto the properties?
So the letter did go out, the survey did go out, they responded. We had 85 responses from the residents. And the overwhelming majority of those responses were favorable to providing the easement. But there's additional information and more sort of, in my mind, meetings that need to take place that discuss the actual drainage project and what it looks like and what it would.
And that's
entail.
not John Rushke's job. He's not doing the drainage.
Well, he's gonna do the design, he has to design that.
He has to design.
Yeah,
So he has to be directed
which is what,
to design the drainage, which hasn't happened yet. And I know that when we met, we talked at least be a 9-month project. I'm just trying to give people like a sense of what's going on,
Mhm.
how long, you have everybody's approval for the easements? Do you have the easements?
so, no.
Okay, so what's the process for that?
So we're gonna, Alex and I spoke about this, so I think the next thing that we're gonna do is we're gonna literally be knocking on doors and trying to get all the residents that are in a row by each drainage project. We're gonna find a way to physically knock on their doors and to get the contact information for that row of homes. So we can, so if there's total agreement in that one row, we can basically start immediately.
Great, so if you need help knocking on those doors, I know those residents on Ridgewood, when we were there, they were like, ready to go, ready to knock on doors. They wanted to they were like, we can get the signatures tomorrow. Like, I really think you should go ask them to help you.
Well, we're
And
On those 3 houses that were most affected, ask them to help you, go get those signatures.
Yeah.
Okay,
Wait, may I ask Mr. Wasserman, what are the 3 projects that you are working on?
Well,
could you repeat the report again?
yeah, I already.
you know what,
did.
this is really important, Sanjeev,
Well,
and you don't know
let
anything that's
me-
going on.
well,
I didn't
So
even
the
know the
thing is,
meetings we asked for them
I
to be
feel
public.
that you guys are not in
Wait,
the
can
flood
you stop?
mitigation team, and we have actually given the report. And on all the flood mitigation, what makes you feel that we have not met with those residents? We have met with those residents, and we are going to ask them to help us.
But you just said that we're gonna go
The flood mitigation team is, our committee has been working, I would say every week we've been meeting and we've been.
If you open it up to public, to let your committee be
Well, that's why-
open, like all of our other
We
committees,
have a public session.
not a
coming up.
public session. Every committee, and I was hoping that this was gonna be in the ordinance, and then I had to run out because my mom fell and all that.
Right.
But that every flood, this is such an important topic
agree.
for our community,
I agree.
that every meeting should be open to the public.
Right.
Because I wanna know what's going on.
Right.
I don't wanna hear a report, we're working on it.
Yeah,
I wanna know the specifics of what is happening.
I understand your frustration, Mayor.
It's
We are
not a
working on it.
frustration, it's a sense of urgency, not to be confused with frustration, a sense of urgency and a sense of that I was there and lived through it with them, and I'm concerned. So not frustration, concern and urgency. Because we'll be in
I understand your
August
sense
before
of
you know.
Urgency, Mayor. What can I say?
You can't say anything.
Okay.
I would like for the flood mitigation advisory meetings to be open to the public,
Point
each
noted.
one, so I can come and comment.
All right.
And
so
everybody
point
else can too.
noted. We will come back. We will discuss this with our advisory board, and we'll come back and let you know whether they agree with you or not.
Yeah.
Great.
And we have a meeting, public, as I mentioned, on the 12th.
Okay, so lastly, Mr. Wasserman, what are the 3 drainage projects you're working on?
We're talking about right now, we have 3 drainage projects where Alex has sent out.
Ridgewood,
Which.
what are the 3
Alex,
streets?
can you give us the exact street address?
Yes, Greenwood and Ridgewood. the backyard area in between Greenwood and Ridgewood, Locust and Ridgewood, by the intersection with Gilbert, as well as then Ridgewood and Locust, more toward B'nai Israel.
Right. And we need, since, you know, we need full agreement along that road. So that's what we're working. That's a top priority as we go into January.
So theoretically, in January, those agreements should be had. Rushke will be here to talk
Yeah,
about it.
yes.
We'll get a briefing from him.
Yeah, and
Awesome.
Mr. Rushke's been working, you know, at every meeting he comes, and our team has been excellent. in
Great.
my opinion.
Great. Committee Women Megan, do you have any reports for tonight?
The library. The library is still doing very well at Annie Says, and they wanted everyone to know that chess classes are still going on Saturdays, and they're very excited. In February, there will be a chess tournament, and it will be at the Annie Says, please. Their location and progress is moving along swimmingly at the library on all the work they're doing. And the one thing they are hopefully, Dorothy Kelly's working really hard with friends. Hopefully they will have a book sale in May, which they didn't get to have. So we're thrilled beyond measure. And that's all I have. Thank you.
That sale is awesome because everyone can bring their old DVDs and books and drop them off at the library that they make money.
Sorry.
When is the library reopening?
Probably February.
Oh,
February. Yeah, they're working most diligently. They, you know, it's a great library board. They're very committed. So February, things seem to be right on target.
excellent.
That's my report.
Mr. McDonald, do you have any reports for us today?
Yeah, just want to remind the residents that parking permits, commuter, business, shopper, which are available to our residents to shop in the downtown and not have to feed the meters, with time limits applying, as well as all other types of parking permits are available. Commuter and business parking permits are available online now. So residents can, and employees and business owners can go online and fill those permits out and provide the information online and pay for them online. So I just wanted to let everyone know about that. Free parking will be in effect until the new year, January 3rd. Paid parking will go back into effect. And just a reminder, and I'm not sure if the mayor was going to bring this up in her reports, but we will have a public information session on January 10th at 7 p.m. Regarding the township's fair share housing settlement. And we will also have a public information session on January 12th at 7 p.m. regarding the 100% affordable development at 11 Main Street. Just keep in mind that these are going to be a hybrid between in-person and Zoom, subject to obviously everything that is going, but certainly residents can register online to be a part of that Zoom. We are asking that if people are going to come in person, they just let us know.
Great, thank you. And thank you for working so diligently to get those set up, Alex. Alex, the environmental review.
Yes.
For the 100% affordable. Can you please let everybody know? I don't know who's seen that review in terms of.
That draft review has
The
been
draft.
provided to the 11 Main Street
Just so not
subcommittee.
the whole township committee. So what?
No,
So,
and it's been provided to the developers that are responding to the RFP in that process.
and the planner, our planner too, or I guess.
Beth McManus, the affordable housing.
So it was
plan.
like 1,100 pages. that
Yes.
review. So
Yes.
I mean,
I didn't read it yet.
Right.
I will, but I
okay,
didn't read it.
I would really like Cliff Notes and I would like some professional to come and explain it to me.
Yes, and we can
So-
provide cliff notes to the township committee as a whole as well on that report.
And
Most of it is backup, like old historical documents and things like that. There's a summary in the first 5 pages of that.
okay, so when we have the information session about that specific site,
Mhm.
can that report be made? I think people want to know about that report when they're able to ask questions. They want that information. So do we put the memo? Can we put the memo up on the website? I mean, can we?
I think it would be
someone
far,
draft? a
Yeah.
Cliff Notes?
I think it'd be far better that we put a draft, like a summary on, because as you know, this is a draft document because there are still some documents being waited for we are waiting for from the Department of Environmental Protection.
Do we know when we're gonna get those?
I was told today, actually, that there is that he expects them to be available by January 4th. So if that is the case, then we can finalize that document.
Okay,
But-
who's going to write the memo?
Well, one, I think you have to decide whether the summary within that is sufficient. We can certainly use that, or the individual from VHB, Paul Drucker, who's doing the report, can provide a summary memo.
Do you have any suggestions? on
How to get it.
Yeah, or just like, do you have any requests around digesting that information, getting it out to the public?
Well, I think it is important to get it out to the public, but I think we have to, like Alex is saying, put a summary together because, 1,200 pages is a lot. And I'd be surprised if the DEP can move that quickly. I've had experiences with the DEP. It takes a long time.
They've been waiting for a while, so hopefully this is
It
the
can take
last.
a while. But
I
I'm pleased
think
with
that's
what
a
you,
great suggestion of having summary or footnote somewhere, so we can go through it too.
Sure, yeah.
I mean, there's no reason why the entire
No.
town, everybody should get it.
Correct.
Okay, great. So do you, Mr. McDonald, do you want to say anything about the report at this time?
No, I think it's better that we have a
Okay. When
summary.
is so I know that, when is our next, the concept plan?
Mhm.
It got submitted to Fair Share.
That's correct.
With the fair housing being pushed, the conference was pushed to January.
Correct.
How does that affect, does it affect the concept plan? Like, where are we with, are we waiting for Fair Share Housing to come back with comments?
Yes.
And then are we reconvening?
Yes, so the settlement agreement stipulates that the township must submit a concept plan to Fair Share Housing for their review and consideration. That had to be done before the December 31st.
So that had nothing to do with the fairness here?
No.
That doesn't get delayed because
Nope.
the fairness?
Correct.
Okay,
So we have not heard back from Fair Share Housing at this point.
and we don't know when or if.
There is
or
no indication.
how.
Again, we were supposed to submit that to them on the 31st, by the 31st. We did so early, in the hopes that to hear back sooner as a result of the holidays and everything going on at this time. We have not, and I assume that we will hear shortly after the new year at this point.
Okay. The two-way traffic circulation, the re-proposal, which wasn't here at the last township committee meeting, did that come in?
That did come in, and I have to distribute that to the full committee as well as the subcommittee on this. Yes.
Great, so you'll do that?
Yes.
Okay, great, thank you. Okay. Mr. Molman, do you have any reports for us tonight? No. Okay, Mr. Falcon, do you have any reports tonight?
Yes, quickly, Mayor, as you already alluded to, Judge Gardner adjourned the fairness hearing to January 28, essentially to accommodate the situation of the special master and for no other reason. So we will proceed. Ed Buzak is preparing the presentation, and that will go on January 28.
Now, I know people had to register and sign up for that. Since it got pushed back, people didn't have to register and sign up for that?
No, they did.
They
but
did.
It doesn't push it back.
That doesn't mean it's still closed. It doesn't reopen for more people. Okay. Mr. Falcon, I'm so sad that you're not here with us tonight because I wanted just to say thank you. How long have you been, so Mr. Falcon's firm is staying on board with us next year, but Mr. Falcon won't be in the room with us, right?
Yeah, generally, I guess an easy way to explain it, after 50 years of attending night meetings, I'm going to kind of switch roles, at least in that regard, with my partner, Brad Carney, who will be attending your meetings, and I will be in the office and dealing with Alex and doing, a number of the things that I usually do. But yes, you're quite correct. Brad Carney will be your primary contact person, and he will be attending your meetings.
Well, I just want to say thank you for the 15 years of being in the room with us. And your presence will be missed, and we are happy that you will still be working for Millburn Township behind the scenes. So thank you very much, Kit.
Thank you for that.
Okay, and then my report. I've been thinking a lot about this past year that I had the pleasure and opportunity to serve Millburn Township as its mayor. And it's been quite an interesting year. I think at the top of the year, I said out loud, as long as we don't get a flood, everything will be okay. And Ida really brought out the best of this community. And I was thinking about this because I was with somebody and my periodontist, and we're in the teeth cleaning, and it's like, wow, Millburn, never seen anything like it. Like the destruction and then how fast we bounced back as a community. And it was because of all the volunteers that came out in those following days, the next day that came out and helped put the town back together again. So I think, and it was tragic, and then rebuild it in the months, but I'm grateful that I got to witness it in terms of the strength and the resiliency and the compassion and the love of this community coming together. So that is a blessing that I will take with me for the rest of my life, and knowing just what's possible when people come together and just help each other. So that is was quite an experience. And then flex parking came out this summer, which is very personal for me because it is part of the reason why I even raised my hand to serve in this township, which was, a lot of people looked at me not quite understanding why I made that choice, and then not really thinking that I was up to the task or could do the job. And I'm glad that I did. People often ask me, do you have any regret for serving? I mean, and I have another 3 years, so it's not over, right? This is not my goodbye speech at all, but taking out flex parking was huge. So, and having the full support of this committee to get that done was huge. And I would say that for me, it was definitely one of the highlights of the year. I think that's all I want to say in my report. And I want to thank everyone for supporting me in the seat, and also to the people who didn't support me, who questioned me, and who like to come up and yell at me. I want to thank you too, because I learned a lot being on this side, and it's also often been said that I was on that side yelling, and it's true, I was. I mean, I don't think I was yelling. I think I strongly voicing my opinion passionately. But I've learned a lot in the 5 years that I've been involved in this room. And I'm just grateful for the opportunity for growth. And so to all those people, I want to thank everybody for being involved in the township. And though we might not agree, it is important for people to keep showing up and expressing their opinions, even if you're angry. It probably even so if you're angry. And it's important that your voice is heard and that you stay awake and alert and active in the community that you live. And so with that, my report is done.
So I'd like to thank you as well, Mayor. It was a pleasure having you as a mayor. we may have some instances where the thought process doesn't match, but that doesn't mean anything. I think we all have different ways of thinking, but you've been an excellent mayor and learned a lot as well. Thank you for everything you did.
Yes, and I can echo that, Tara. You have brought up a lot of important projects that I hope we continue to move them forward. And we've been really busy this year, but a lot of good stuff is happening, and that's really important.
That's true.
Right.
And tonight, we're all about to see the fruits of a year-long process, well, not a year, but a 9-month long
Right.
process of talking about the gateway and the vision plan was excellent and building the SID and Mayor Lieberberg. I mean, the fact that we had this, I'll just always feel kind of grateful to you and Richard for moving that along, because I can't even imagine if we didn't have Steve this year. I don't, as a community and that mechanism, I don't know where we'd be right now. So lots of thank yous all the way around. And Mark, are you, Chris is up. Chris is up. So we have MKW tonight with us, and we have Chris and we have Mark, and I think we have Mike on the phone. We're just going to talk about a little bit about this whole process, and take it away, Chris.
All right, take this off. This, folks, is going to be one of the more fun, exciting projects Millburn Township has going to do. I've been living in town for the better part of 40 years, and everyone knows me, everyone on the committee knows me, that I like to volunteer. And out of all the committees and out of all the volunteer stuff that I have done, this to Chris Drucker is one of the more exciting projects that we could do. So this project is Gateway to Millburn and opening up Taylor Park. What I'm gonna do now is I'm gonna tell everyone who was on the subcommittee, and then I'm gonna hand it off to Mark. Just to let you folks know, I don't want to take Mark's thunder, but the subcommittee has met 5 or 6 times, and we had 10 firms that gave us RFPs, and we spent hours on this committee. And what's going to happen with this committee, we're going to open it up to the township committee here, and then to the general public, and then to MKW is going to give their presentation. So these are the folks that are on the subcommittee. We were led by Jesse Molman, and let me give a couple of K-dos if you folks don't mind, to Jesse Molman. Jesse is the assistant business administrator. He was the chair of this committee. And I have to say, Jesse is extremely intelligent, articulate. He runs a phenomenal meeting. It is, he had us, fill out these forms and everything, and it was phenomenal. So I just want to say to Alex McDonald, it was a great hire, Alex.
Millburn.
Just,
student.
that's
Chris,
right.
you're a good salesman too.
Yeah.
That's right, Sanjeev. Okay, so the folks that are on the committee is Mayor Tara Pupis, Township Committee Woman Diane Thorl-Eglow, Environmental Commission Person Pyra Patel, Millburn Creative Collective Mark Robinson, Paper Mill Playhouse Executive Director Mike Stotts, Assistant Superintendent of DPW Tom Doty, Short Hills Garden Club Juliet Davis, Executive Director of Explore Millburn Short Hills Steve Grillo, and yours truly. Now I want to hand it off to Mark, and he's going to tell everyone the process that we went through to get to this point. Thanks, folks.
Thanks, Chris.
Thank you, Chris.
And Chris of the Recreation Commission.
Right.
Oh, yeah.
And the 4th of July committee
Yeah, well, that's.
and all that stuff.
All that
And
jazz.
Rocktoberfest and all around town.
Thanks, Chris. Good evening, Millburn Township Committee. Early this year, Millburn Township concluded a downtown visioning planning process conducted by Perkins Eastman. This enlisted the active participation of hundreds of residents and resulted in several key suggestions to address challenges within the downtown environment, including improvement to pedestrian circulation and supporting businesses by making Millburn's downtown a greater overall visitor experience. One of the report's suggestions deemed most immediately actionable was the creation of a Taylor Park Gateway. A redesign of the presently largely hidden entrance of Taylor Park on Millburn Avenue could create greater access to the park, more opportunities for programming, and better circulation of residents and visitors between the businesses of downtown and the park itself. Therefore, a Taylor Park Gateway Committee was formed in the spring of 2021. After preliminary site visits to Taylor Park, discussions regarding the potential programming and design requirements were had amongst the members, previously mentioned by Chris. And by late summer, a draft request for proposal, or RFP, was created to enlist potential landscape architects. Critical within this proposal were the requests that any response take into consideration that the area, quote, be accessible year-round with sustainable plant life, effective stormwater management, and environmental sensitivity. More specifically, consideration should be made for creating a more inviting entrance, a flexible design that supports multiple programs, including entertainment or performances, and that consideration be given to the historic Wallbridge Rose Garden and the majestic American elm immediately adjacent to Millburn Avenue. Further, given the dramatic challenges Millburn has had with flooding, most recently during Ida, added emphasis was given to green infrastructure and stormwater management practices. Finally, respondents to the RFP would need to demonstrate how they might actively engage the community of Millburn in the design process itself. Suffice it to say, all of this is a fairly tall order. The Taylor Park Gateway Committee received 10 responses, as Chris mentioned, to the RFP from local or regional landscape architectural firms. 4 were deemed to be extremely high quality responses in line with the vision and from firms able to demonstrate their exceptional qualifications. These firms were invited to separate 1-hour video interviews with the committee to present their approach to this project. After this process, one firm and their thoughtful and inspired response became the committee's recommended selection to lead the Taylor Park Gateway design and construction effort. I would like to now introduce MKW and Associates, the recommended landscape architectural firm selection for this exciting community project. Alan Juba and Jim Walsh will share with us the Millburn Township and the Millburn Township Committee a snapshot of their qualifications and approach to the proposed Taylor Park Gateway design endeavor. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for the great introduction, Mark.
Okay, thank you again for that, Mark. That was a great introduction, and good evening, everyone. I'm glad to meet everyone here this evening in front of me and behind me as well. My name again is Alan Juba. I answer to Al or Alan, one or the other, doesn't matter. But we've got a little bit of a presentation to share with you this evening, probably about 20 or 25 slides that pretty much recaps our proposal that we put forward and sets forth our qualifications and some of the thoughts that we had, very preliminary thoughts that we had regarding the Taylor Park Gateway proposal. So let me go through that. I'm going to get started, and thank you, Jesse, for advancing the slides so well. The team that we have assembled for this project, of course, we've got the Township of Millburn as part of the client team for this project. Very important that you'll be providing input to us and direction as we move forward. MKW and Associates, we are landscape architects. The firm has been in existence for 57 plus years. We are located in Rutherford, New Jersey. About a half an hour it took for us to get here this evening. Not bad at all. And we will be providing project management, landscape architecture, and we'll be the lead designer on the project. I am principal in charge for the project. Jim Welsh will be project manager and senior landscape architect on the project. And we have Ryan and Vivian from our office also who will be working on the project, providing support and design work for it. We have teamed with Boswell Engineering to provide engineering services for the project, because this is not purely a landscape architectural project, but requires some support in the form of engineering. Civil engineering, for example, they're located in South Hackensack. We have quite a good relationship with them. We've been working with them on previous projects and current projects as well. So we are very much simpatico, if I may use that word. Going forward, just want to mention, that's the next slide is good. Just want to mention that we know New Jersey, and this is just very a quick sort of assemblage of projects that we have been working on that are either been constructed, such as Dundee Island Park in Passaic, New Jersey, as you see in the middle top row, Riverside County Park in Lyndhurst, phase 1 of which is under construction right now. We've worked in Mercer County for the Mercer County Master Gardeners, the Outdoor Learning Center in Newark, New Jersey, the Bishop Quad at Rutgers University, and then a Boswell project, Castle Point and Sinatra Park in Hoboken. So we do know New Jersey. We've got expertise. We understand the vagaries of working in this state and such, and we will bring that to this project as well. We like to explore possibilities on projects. As designers, we are trained to look at different options and how we might develop any particular project. We don't like to approach any particular project with any set of ideas that we bring, but we like to explore possibilities. This is just a real quick snapshot of projects we've worked on in New Jersey and abroad. Pier 84 at Hudson River Park in New York, for example. We worked on a number of botanical garden projects, such as at the Dallas Arboretum, the Children's Adventure Garden there, the Children's Adventure Garden at the New York Botanical Garden in the Bronx as well. And then on other projects in Brooklyn, also in Lyndhurst, again, Riverside County Park, and the University of Georgia Botanical Garden at Children's Garden there. So we bring, I think, that expertise, that level of knowledge of landscape architecture, of planting, of how things work in this state, and would love to, express that in this project as well. The last slide I want to talk about before turning it over to Jim is the fact that we listen. We've been told before that we're really good listeners, and that oftentimes that relationship between a client and a design professional isn't the strongest. I've heard horror stories before. And I like to think that we're very good listeners, and we do so in a very formal way through the introduction of community meetings, which we're looking to do on this project. We just sitting here tonight, we hear how important public input is into meetings. These are just some really quick snapshots, again, of public meetings that we've done in the past. For example, the Dundee Island Park project, the community meeting there, Lincoln School, another project that we did in Newark, New Jersey, to establish scoping meetings, Highbridge Park in Upper Manhattan for a master plan. And we do these in person and we do them remotely. And we do them as hybrid approaches too. So just because we've all been dealing with the pandemic over the past almost 2 years now, we've still been doing these community meetings. Some people are comfortable doing them in person. So very often we do these as hybrid approaches too. And that's what we'll bring to this project. From there, I want to turn it over to Jim so he can talk about how we see the big picture on this project.
Good evening. Thank you, Al. Good evening, everybody. Thank you. When we approach a project, as Al was saying, we don't come to the project with a pre-formulated set of ideas. We want to hear from the community, but we also want to look at what's going on around the project in itself. We understand that there's been many other studies about the town in general. For the master plan, Taylor Park had a strategic plan done in 2020, as well as in 2021, the completed downtown vision plan. So we're going to learn from all those pieces that were done already. We're not starting anew. We're going back to them, taking the best nuggets out of them and bringing them forward into this project that we're going to be starting. Also, when we look at a project, we understand that as much as the right picture shows the project area that we were told to focus on, we understand that the project is affected by things beyond that. The local community, as well as the whole town, as well as possibly even the towns around it and those connections that happen out there. So it's as much as it is about one space, ultimately we'll do contract documents for that. There are many other effects that will impact the design and guide and inform the design as it moves forward. In particular, the neighborhood context, the downtown retail core will be a major impact on the design of the site as well as Taylor Park itself. What the slide is showing now is what would be like a 5-minute walking radius from the project site that includes the whole downtown retail core, and it reaches out as far as the Paper Mill Playhouse, basically. So it's an important area, and we'll be drawing on a lot of the constituents in those areas to inform and help us develop the design for this project. Once again, just looking at what's going on in that downtown retail core and what's going to be impacting the design, we see that there's a combination of food and beverage establishments, as well as general merchandise and general services as well. So we're looking at that, and we're hoping to use that information to guide the design once again. Maybe the design of the park can help those businesses. Maybe those businesses could help the programming of that park and help become a more lively space as it moves forward. We don't come to the project with a preset idea for what it should be, but we do come with precedent images of what's been done in the past. So what we're going to be doing as we start the design of this project is sharing ideas of what's been done in other places, so that we don't talk about, do you like this or do you like that? We can show you images. People give us better reactions, more true reactions from looking at pictures, because it's better to look at them and understand what we're talking about. The combination of words and pictures is much more supportive to our design process than just words alone, because words can get a little bit confusing. With our 50+ years of experience, we understand what typically makes a space successful, a public outdoor space. So these are just some of the things that we were thinking about. Ideas that we'll bring to the community as potential program ideas. Let's go to the next slide, maybe. We know that typically ample and varied seating options are important to a public space such as this. And whether it's seating on benches, as we see in the top left, seating on seat walls to the right, seating with movable tables and chairs to the bottom left, or even just other things to sit on, be it rocks and boulders. Those are all different ways that people sit. And I think that the idea of varied seating options will attract different groups there. Maybe the youth might be more attracted to the walls and the rocks kind of a thing. So we'll work with the committee and the townspeople to understand what the desires are and what their vision is for this place, help to draw it out so that we can bring that to the project. Let's go to the next slide. Flexibly programmed space is important. Whether, it could be an open space one day, it could be filled with a town fair type of event or a town market on the left, top left. Something as simple as a food vendor, an ice cream maker coming in there and providing an opportunity after a game in the park for people to kind of walk towards the street as opposed to walking towards the downtown retail core, as opposed to walking in a different direction, starting to pull it all together. Multi-use space, the bottom left, showing maybe a yoga or a Tai Chi or something like that, where people can come to that space and do that activity. And that activity might be programmed by a local business, featured by a local business. So once again, that the businesses and the community working together. Connecting people in place is very important as well, through whether it's a performance space or visual displays, even just an enhancing streetscape. Those are all different ideas that we'll work with, and we'll bring out ideas and share with the community. We do understand that special features are important to a gateway type of a place. And sometimes there's special features that are out there that we can draw off of. They might not be on our property, but we can look to them. So those are things that we will look to, and what kind of views and opportunities will be around. And if there are no views, we will work to create different opportunities for creating that gateway. What might be a special feature that would be viewed locally right within that space, but also maybe viewed from down Millburn Ave or Lackawanna Place, that it can be used as a real visual drawing point. one thought that we did have was coming down Lackawanna Place, the top part of the slide shows what that view is from the train station down to the park right now. And it's kind of nondescript. There's something down there, but we're not quite sure what it is. But if we use one of those larger features, some sort of element, something that might be locally driven in terms of an idea or an icon, at the end of that view, it might draw a connection, make the connection not only between the train station and the park and the train station and the downtown retail core, but also even up to the reservation as well. When we do our designs, we just want to note that we always keep sustainability as part of the design process, whether it's creating new rain gardens or ways to deal with stormwater management integrally to the design, using native plantings, or even in a case such as this, trying to maintain some of the important plantings that are there. Maybe that large elm is that important that we really want to work around and protect that with all that we can. Another idea is permeable pavements that we've used on other projects as well. So with that, I'm going to go back to Al here for a second.
Thank you, Jim. Just to wrap up with a couple more slides, the sort of nitty gritty, some of the details. We're looking at a preliminary schedule that we put together going forward on the project. As design professionals, there's a certain sequence through which we work, the design process, as we call it. We start out with site analysis, understanding what the site is like. For example, you can see that task in the bar chart here on the left side. And during that site analysis phase, which is phase A here, we'll be doing a community meeting, which we are envisioning happening about 6 weeks after we've been authorized to proceed on the project. So that'll give us some time to do our site analysis, to get material together, presentation type material for an advertisement to go out so that people are, well, knowing about the project meeting actually happening at a certain point in time. Task B on this schedule is the survey, which will happen at the same point in time as we are authorized. We will need to have a new topographic survey prepared for the project so that we're working with the latest information. That's not going to hold us up until we get the final survey. It's not like we can't start working, because we are assuming that there is some level of survey or base drawing that's already available to us that we can use as base information to at least get materials together for a community meeting. From there, we go on to task C, which is schematic design, where we start putting together design ideas, things that we've heard about in the first community meeting that we've done under task A, with some filtration by the client team as well, of course. Coming up with various ideas. At the end of schematic design, or towards the end of schematic design, is when we do our second community meeting for the project, where we come back to the community, talk about how we've made ideas become reality. I should mention that the first community meeting that we're doing, we're looking to do that in a 2-part sort of a format. The same night, the first part would be where we would be giving our take, our understanding of the site, what some of the design issues are, and presenting the matter of fact at hand. The second part of that meeting is where we would be listening to the community, putting on our listening shoes, so to speak, and to hear what people have to say. And that's what's informing our schematic design. Going back to the community that second time to show the sort of vetted design that we've come up with, you as a client team. Once we get closure on that, there may be additional comments that we hear at that community meeting that can be filtered into to come up with a final schematic design for the project. From there, we go on to design development, where we are refining the design. The direction has already been established for the design, but we're refining it with the grading, and engineers are coming in to apply their level of civil engineering expertise, that sort of thing. And that's really the start of construction documentation, which is the next phase, phase E, which we're looking at to occur over a period of about 8 weeks or so. 12 weeks for construction documents. So about 3 months, where we are actually preparing drawings to go out to bid, where we're, indicating what the materials are, what dimensions are, what the grading is like, all of that. You will notice that all of our work periods are noted as those bright green bars, but at the end or near the end of those periods, there's a red kind of period, so to speak, and that's what we're describing as client review. So that's where we're giving you material to review, to look at, to make sure that we're headed in the right direction and things are being closed up appropriately. At the end of construction documents, we come to another period called the bid period and the award, which is when the project is actually out to bid. We would be, during that time period, answering any questions that the contractors may have. We would be reviewing bids received, things of that nature, and then finish up with the construction period, where the project is actually under construction. We are still involved during that time frame. We are involved in such a way to make sure that the contractor is building the project as we have specified, the materials, making sure that the concrete is the correct concrete, for example. The plant material is as specified and is of quality as specified, things of that nature. So in a nutshell, the overall scheme that we're looking at here is more or less about a 9 or a 9.5 month period for design. Those phases A through E, including your design review periods as well. Task F, which is bid period and award, we've got about 2.5 months for that. And that's perhaps a little more liberal than it needs to be, but we're a little unfamiliar with your bid process and what you need to accomplish to award that sort of a contract to a contractor. So we've indicated that at about 2.5 months. That works out to be 12 months or so from the beginning of design through the end of that bid period. And then we've indicated about another 12 months for construction of the project itself. So overall, 2 years. We've indicated our design fees in the lower left corner of this particular slide here. You can see that each of those fees is pegged to one of the milestones that is in the schedule, as you can see there. We typically invoice on a monthly basis based on a percentage complete of that milestone. So the milestone may be 25% complete, 35, 50% complete, that sort of thing, which is fairly typical for the design industry. Moving on from there is our last slide, and just as a recap, I think that our design team offers local knowledge, comprehensive analysis. I've been to the site already before we put in our proposal. Jim's been to the site as well. We bring to the table an informed, flexible process and really a desire to listen to what people would like to see happen here. And I think we have some tough skin as well, which may be necessary. We're used to dealing with diverging opinions sometimes, let's put it that way. So with that, thank you for your time. And if you have any questions or comments, we'd be happy to address them.
Thank you so much. Before we open up questions to you from the committee, I know that Steve Grillo and Mike Stotts are on the phone or on the Zoom, and I just wanted to give them a chance to speak before all of you can ask your questions. So
That's fine.
and Mike and Steve are also part of the subcommittee. So are you both there? Steve, do you want to make any comments?
Yes, Mayor, can you hear me?
We can.
Terrific. Good evening, Mayor Purpose, members of the committee. Before I begin, I would like to echo what you heard before and recognize Jesse Molman for his excellent leadership. He really is an asset to the town hall staff. It's been a pleasure working with him on this process. Specific to this project, Explore Millburn Short Hills is excited about the opportunity to improve and enhance a critical location in our downtown, the Millburn Avenue Gateway to Taylor Park. We're especially interested in the creation of a live music and performance space through this project. From May through October of this year, Explore hosted nearly 50 performances throughout town. While most of those performances were held at the Main Street Pedestrian Mall and the Boxcar Bar due to logistical issues, we did host performances at the Taylor Park entrance. Although limited by a number of physical factors, the jazz, blues, and classical music that our talented performers brought to the area enhanced the shopper and pedestrian experience and helped support our local businesses. In fact, Millburn has now become a go-to location for outdoor live music in the Union and Essex County area. However, great performances need great spaces, and upgrades to seating, lighting, a stage, sound amplification, and electric access would make this unique location for great entertainment, supported by great design and infrastructure. We look forward to working with the team and the governing body to create an exciting public space for our residents and visitors alike, and enhancing all that our downtown and our entire special improvement district offer.
Thank you, Steve. And Mike, do you want to say anything?
Sure, yes. Can you hear me, Mayor?
You can, Ken. Thank you.
Okay, good evening, Mayor, and I'm sorry I'm not there to join you all, but thank you for this opportunity. I'm, as the leader of Paper Mill Playhouse and one of the leading cultural assets in this community, I'm very happy to see any project, but especially a project like this, that will make Millburn a more livable, walkable, and enjoyable community. It's terrific to see some action taken on some of the recommendations made in the most recent visioning plan. Too often, those plans just sit on the shelves. I've been encouraged by the proactive desire by the town council and other stakeholders to start working on improvements that will lift up the amenities in the community that will help to attract more visitors and increase foot traffic. Leveraging our assets, including Taylor Park, the reservation, and Paper Mill, will only help lift Millburn out of the malaise that has set in since the onset of COVID. Wouldn't it be great to have this beautification project to look forward to, even on this very small piece of land in Taylor Park? I've always envisioned, Millburn truly being a cultural corridor that extends from Turtleback Zoo to Paper Mill to Taylor Park, and whatever we can do to fill in the space and highlight the cultural assets that we have within that space will only lift Millburn up. So I very much look forward to working on this project. I think it'll be an excellent opportunity for the community and for Paper Mill to be involved in a greater way in a downtown development.
Thank you so much, Mike. And Mike, I just want to personally thank you. When I came to you at the top of the year, I mean, I know you are the director of the Paper Mill and have a very busy schedule, and you said yes and have devoted your time and energy to this project. So thank you so much for saying yes to us.
It's my pleasure.
Yes. Okay, I'm going to open it up to questions first from the committee, and then we'll see how that goes. Does anyone have any questions?
You want first, anyone? So, hi, you said it's a 2 years project, 12 months of design and 12 months of construction,
That's what we're looking at preliminarily, yes.
and your cost over there was about 140,
Yes,
and
That's
that goes all the way through construction phase in 2
Yes.
years?
yes, it does.
Based on what you have, or maybe you may not even know that by now, because you're going to get community involved. But you heard our SID director talking about music space there. Approximately, what would be the project cost? If you know, if you don't know, that's fine too.
I could not tell you what it would be at this point. I would be shooting in the dark.
So it doesn't matter if it's $100,000 project for construction, you will still be charging that same fee, or if it's $2 million project, your fee will still be the same.
Our fee is the same. I mean, we've looked at it based on what the work effort is involved with it, the amount of time that we think would be anticipated to do this sort of a project. Yes.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay.
Yeah, I have a couple questions. First of all, your presentation was excellent.
Thank
Thank you. Thank you so much for all the work you've put in. I guess one of my questions is, as you develop the plan with public engagement, is it possible to lay out, the vision? In other words, you're working in a space, but would it be possible, if we want to do some exciting things, to segment it where you could in other words, is your plan just to do the plan and then just to do the project? Or is it possible, like if you have a bigger vision for the space, that we could do it in parts? And part of my thinking is also that, God, if you had a theater space or a performance space for music or potentially theater, would there be an opportunity to, find naming opportunity, or, so it could be, it couldn't be just good, but it could be like something really special.
I think the area that we've been given to look at as part of this project, sort of the limits of it, as we had shown on one of our early slides, is fairly small and will accommodate, I think, the task at hand. I think when we go and meet with the community, it will be one of our desires to show that area to them and solicit any thoughts that people may have that they have within that particular area. I think giving them a plan to see what the area is like will be helpful. As far as I'm really hoping to hear some great ideas about what might happen within that space. Is it performance? Is it sitting? Is it that sort of a thing? And then I think we start weighing some of those ideas collectively, both us as designers and you as the client team, saying that's a really great idea, but maybe the project needs to expand beyond these limits in order to do that.
Yeah.
But I think that's going to be very dependent on some of the feedback that we hear from the community when we meet with them.
Yeah, because we have like such great partners here. We have the paper mill, we have our Explore Millburn team. We have great, music, potential. So, so I just think that there's a tremendous opportunity here.
Absolutely.
And I think part of my work with Explore Millburn and part of the former mayor's work with Explore Millburn, or current work, is that we want our residents, or something that is one of my goals, to stay local, shop local, stay local, enjoy the arts local, eat local, and to offer them engagement where they don't necessarily want to go anywhere. Maybe it's music, maybe it's dining, but let's stay in town. So,
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I think this project has that potential.
I do too.
Yeah.
I have a question. Yeah. Thank you so much for coming out this evening.
Our
Just
pleasure.
because the slide went up so quickly, specifically, what area of the park are you talking about that you've been tasked with?
Can we go back to that slide, Jesse? It's
Thank you.
earlier in the presentation. There we go. Perfect. On the drawing that you're looking at on the right side, there is the area, the project limits that we are looking at.
So
Shown by that
that's the rose
yellow.
garden. The
Yes.
rose garden are those,
Are the
that
four
circle.
quadrants that you see there
right?
that are the
Almost
circle.
looks like a
Yes.
Celtic cross.
Yes.
Right? And then it comes, that walkway that comes all the way down. So that piece stops at what I would consider the backstop of the ball field?
Absolutely.
Okay,
Yes.
so that's the space just in there.
Exactly. I
see.
think there are a couple of blue Atlas cedars, those sort of bluish evergreen type trees
Yes.
that are located at that lower portion there. Those
Okay.
are more or less the limit that we are
Okay.
looking at in this
Okay.
area.
Thank you so much.
Okay.
And you will just, I just want to address one more thing in terms of the sustainability with the tree, the oak tree, and our garden. Yeah, I think you really do have a taste that we have a lot of residents that are very committed, to sustainability, and I think it's an important aspect of your work.
Indeed. I mean, I like to think of ourselves as contextualists, in that we sort of respect what is existing there. That elm tree is just an amazing, amazing elm tree. I'm hoping to release it from some of the pavement that's coming right up to its base right now. We are intending to speak with the township arborist to have a better understanding of the condition that tree is in as well. And we're hoping to hear more feedback about the rose garden as well. So that is something that we are looking to work with.
Thank you. And now we're going to open it up to questions from our community.
Okay.
Yes, we're going to come up. You can come up. And if anyone on Zoom has any questions or questions for MKW, please raise your hand.
Hi, Judy Rosenthal, 97 Main Street, Millburn. The area that you just showed, which is basically, it looks like it's about 1 acre in the vicinity of the Rose Garden. Is that the entire scope of your project? Okay, good. That puts me at ease. Because my concern when you were talking about a music venue, I wasn't really sure where you were going. And as you probably know, the eastern side of the park, the southern side of the park, and 50% of the western side of the park are residential. And introducing a music venue, you also have to think about the residents who live there and the impact of a music venue on, noise and, factor in the noise ordinance. I also want to ask that the town not be at cross purposes with developing this one area and flood mitigation. At 97 Main Street, we had over 2 feet of water in the basement, Hurricane Ida. My family has lived in the town for over 100 years, and we've never had that happen before. So when you were talking about this, and you did allay my concerns, I was worried about increasing the amount of impermeable surfaces and the impact that's going to have on stormwater runoff and the impact to the residences on the eastern, southern, and 50% of the western side of the park. And I would just ask the town also look at this globally when you're talking about flood mitigation, to consider how Taylor Park can serve as a stopgap to protecting residents on the 3 sides that I just mentioned. You guys know far better than I, but there are plantings that can be put in, especially along the branch of the Rahway that cuts through Taylor Park, to help mitigate, to prevent the water from spilling over, whether it's miscanthus or some other kind of grasses with dense habits, something to help allay that. And maybe that's part of an expanded scope that this firm could look at. What can we do with the park to help protect the residents against stormwater runoff? Okay, thank you so much. It looks beautiful.
Thank you for your comments.
Would anyone else like to ask a question or make a comment?
Jean Pasternak, 342 Hobart. Thank you for your presentation. I think it's exciting to see some change, but I think what Ms. Rosenthal just said echoes what a number of residents would say. There'd be concern about quality of life and peaceful enjoyment of people's residences that basically cover that entire area except for that spot that you enter. I have heard people, many people actually, going door knocking throughout the whole campaign season this past year, that they are concerned about the level of noise and how it's really increased and how that does impact their ability to enjoy their property. So I think that's really important. The other thing I guess I would want to ask is, I think there was a comment made maybe by your colleague about there was a visioning plan. There were hundreds of residents enlisted. I don't think that that's actually accurate. There were people participating on a Zoom meeting, but a lot of those people were part of the actual committee or the firm that was involved. So we never had an actual in-person meeting or any kind of ability to talk amongst each other, a normal kind of community meeting that you were alluding to. And I think it's so critical. I was really happy to hear you talk about that. It's something that's been missing from a lot of the deliberations of this body this past year. Some of it's because of COVID, but some of it's just because people don't want to hear what people have to say. So we really are refreshed hearing what you had to say. The other thing is about cost. Mr. Viniak brought up, what do you think, potentially the cost could be? And I guess what I would say is, well, what can we afford and what can we get for a certain range of expenditure? If there's any way you could express that, if you spend $1 million, it's this. If you spend $2 million, it might be something like that, just to give the community a sense of what kind of money we're talking about. And then the second question I would have, really, maybe not to you, but where is that funding coming from? And typically in these projects, where do you see it coming from? Thank you.
The funding question, I would have to defer to Jesse or the committee as to where that would be coming from. As far as a budget for this thing, it could be really anywhere of a range of what you were just talking about. $1 million to $2 million to even slightly north of that even. It's going to be very dependent on how we program the space. If it is programmed with more sort of intensive areas, or more intensive activities that require more hardscape as opposed to landscape, it's going to end up being a more expensive project because hardscape, paving, curbs, benches, things like that tend to be more expensive than landscape or softscape. So we try and strike a balance between those two elements. We're very good at working towards a budget. I think as we start to get into the design of the project, as we're working on the schematic design, we'll be getting together some numbers as to where the project, actually is. We've been doing this long enough that, as I mentioned, we are well versed in working towards a budget. But one of the ways that we like to make sure that we're within budget is we try not to cut design program, rather in order to get down to a lower price, a lower budget if we need to. What we will do is take a look at the materials that we're looking at, and maybe the paving materials are not high end like granite or something like that, but they need to be a lower cost of a paving material like colored concrete or precast concrete pavers. So what we would like to do is, maintain the program, the feeling of the project, but there are ways of designing within a budget by changing the materials to be a lesser sort of material. Hope that answers your question.
Have you ever done projects that you've gotten grants on, or that applied for grants, or?
We have, and we're working on those projects right now.
Awesome.
We are not the ones applying for the grants, but rather, we are told that we got a grant of so much money for this project that is oftentimes added to a bucket of an overall project budget.
Is it possible to cut this project into two parts where you're doing the design part first, charge us for that, and if the construction we allow, then you charge for the construction? So you're not getting the project for 24 months. It is 9 months that you're designing or 5 months that you will design. So we will know what exactly the cost will be. And would we be able to say yes or no to it? Would be at that point, and
That's
then
what
you
we're doing.
can.
That's how it's structured. The
Well,
resolution.
so $140,000, what he has just mentioned on his slide,
But that's not
that
the resolution
includes,
is tonight.
I'm sorry,
That's not what the resolution is.
what is the
What would
resolution?
we
then?
be awarding, Jesse? Do you want to speak to this? It is just the design, the design.
And
not
how
the
much is that?
construction fees. 70?
So if MKW is given the notice to proceed, they're going to proceed with the design work. It's ultimately up to the township as to whether we want to move forward with construction. They're not going to pass on their construction costs unless we decide to go forward with that stage of the project. They're
And
just
that-
giving us the total cost should that phase be reached.
And
If
then,
that doesn't happen, what is the cost?
I believe it was around 70,000 to get to the site analysis, the site survey, the schematic design, and the design documents.
Thank you.
so Jesse, just to be clear, the initial design is one part of the project, and we have to decide, so that comes first. And then the township committee would vote on going forward after that.
Correct.
So just to be clear.
Yes.
Sorry, I got confused with the whole amount there and then this. I'm saying that we have to vote for it today without understanding
We
it.
presented this as an entire package because that's how we're typically used to working on such projects.
I would love to do entire project
Yes.
if I have all the cash in the world or money in the world, so.
Understood.
And Mr. McDonald, do you want to just explain where this would be coming from in our budget?
Yeah, so the design work is from preliminary planning expenses. And so, which is generally pulled from capital improvement fund balance. So that initial cost for the design work will be that. And then should any sort of construction project, then that's another discussion.
Thank you.
Are there any other questions? We have, Mr. Feld is on the phone.
We have Mayor.
Oh,
I just wanted to know if that slide presentation will be available for residents to look at, or?
yes, we can put it on the Taylor Park Gateway webpage.
Thank you, Mayor.
Mr. Feld.
Hello?
Mr. Feld, I think you might be muted.
Okay, let's go back. Let's go to the next 10. Geraldine, and we can always come back to Mr. Feld.
I was calling. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. I was just had a question about how the community involvement would be done, because it's so important, because over the past couple of years, it's been very hard to get really good feedback. And if this project, so I was just wondering to get more detail on how that would be handled.
Well, I think as I presented earlier, we're looking to set up a community meeting, which would probably be a hybrid approach. We're looking to set up a meeting, a community meeting, which will probably be a hybrid approach of both in person and an online version. And we will solicit people's opinions as the second part of that meeting. The first part being us as the design team presenting the project limits, our site analysis, our preliminary thoughts about the project, and then listening to what people have to say and making notes thereof.
Okay, so just because I've never really done that before, so that would mean like you'd be set up at the Bauer Center and people would come and talk to you, or?
I don't know. I don't know if the venue has been decided just yet, but we're looking for it to be in some public location. And we would do a presentation similar to what we did this evening with our site analysis and our preliminary thoughts, and then ask people to share their thoughts with us. Yes.
And it would probably be in this, I'm going to assume maybe in this room because of the Zoom capabilities that aren't set up in the Bauer Center. So we just want to make sure that we have the ability to have input like we're having right now.
That would work perfectly well.
So you'd have the chance to actually talk with an individual and give them their thoughts, and that would be written down, and it would all be just who would look at all that information.
I think the entire design team, all of us would, and I think we would share it with the client team as well for their thoughts on it.
Would there be any ability to have someone outside the client team to also evaluate the information?
I would have to defer to the client team on that, who else they want to involve in this process.
Geraldine, we've never met before, but I'm happy to sit with you and make sure that you are part of this process and to figure out a way to facilitate.
That's fine. I just know that it's so important because, just because of COVID and all the things that have been going on, I think a lot of people haven't been as involved. And I don't think everyone is as aware of all what's going on, not because you haven't made it available, it's just because of the way things are. That's all.
Understood, and we will continue to make sure that the public is aware and involved in this process.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, are there any other comments or questions? Do you want to see Mr. Phil? He's gone.
That will be part of our review. Absolutely. 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 All of those areas inform what we're doing on this specific area. Some of the latter slides that Jim showed were kind of like those views down the street, for example. So that's just one example of how far we're looking at how that influences this project as well. I don't know just yet. I don't know that just yet. No, not at all. Okay.
I think what the subcommittee loved most about MKW and their presentation was really that they are coming to us with an open mind and they're here to listen to our whole community. So with that, thank you for coming to present. We will be later, we have some resolutions on our consent agenda items. If you'd like to stay for we will be taking a vote on a resolution to award you the professional service agreement, which will happen in a little bit.
Okay.
And do you have any other questions for any of us?
I think we're good.
Okay, thank you so much.
Thanks for all your time this evening.
Nice to see you in person. Thank you.
Likewise.
Okay. The Township Committee will now consider consent agenda resolutions. I actually had one thought when we were talking about Taylor Park. Mr. McDonald, we didn't talk about this in reports, but the ice skating. Do you have some details? Sorry to veer off.
No, I don't have a whole lot of details except for they've currently set up a ice skating rink on the Taylor Park tennis courts. Certainly, once we start to have a long run of cold weather, that will be available to our residents. Similar to in fashion to last year, except it won't be on the ball field, which had some difficulty in sort of the level of everything and threw off the ice. This is a much flatter surface that will provide a much better opportunity for ice.
Great. And one other thing before we go to consent agenda, Ms. Rosenthal, I think you brought up a good point about Taylor Park, and I don't know that that's MKW's scope, but I think that might be part of John Rushke's scope. So perhaps we can add that to something for him to look at.
Yeah.
Thank you, Mayor. Yeah, thank you. Okay. Are there any comments from the committee in regards to any of the items listed on the consent agenda? May I have a motion to approve resolution 21-328 through resolution 21-333 and resolution 21-337, which are listed on the consent agenda?
Motion.
May I have a second?
Second.
A roll call vote, please.
Ms. Miggins,
Yes.
Ms. Stahl-Eglo,
Yes.
Mr. Vinayak,
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Wasserman,
Yes.
Mayor Prupus,
Yes. Resolution 21-334 to award professional service agreement to the landscape architectural service for Gateway to Taylor Park, MKW and Associates. Are there any comments from the committee in regards to Resolution 21-334? May I have a motion to approve Resolution 21-334?
So moved.
May I have a second?
Second.
May I have a roll call vote, please?
Ms. Miggins,
Yes.
Ms. Eglo,
Yes.
Mr. Vinayak,
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Wasserman,
Yes.
Mayor Prupus.
Yes. I'd like to thank the entire Township Committee for their support in awarding this contract tonight. And MKW, welcome aboard.
Thank you for your presentation.
And to the entire subcommittee, thank you for all your hard work this year. And to anybody who wants to be more involved in this project, please reach out to us. Okay, it's going to be public and open, and it's super exciting for our township. And I don't know who said it, but to have that 2-year process and something to look forward to at the end, I mean, it's good for us to have something great to look forward to.
That was the salesman here, Chris Tucker.
Chris Drucker, you did a good job.
Brought it home, brought it
Sold
home.
me. Okay. Mr. Vinayak is scheduled to sponsor ordinance 2594-21.
Thank you, Mayor Purpose. Procedure for passing ordinance on final reading. I present for consideration on ordinance entitled Ordinance 2594-21. Ordinance amending and supplementing the Township of Millburn Development Regulations and Zoning Ordinance. Tonight is the time set for the public hearing and final passage as advertised in accordance with law.
I declare the hearing open. So now's the time for anyone to come make public comment about this ordinance.
Mayor, would someone like to describe what the ordinance is first so the public knows before I comment?
Mr.
McDonald?
Mr. McDonald.
Yes, this ordinance is to add a provision in the zoning code for multifamily housing to require loading zones or loading areas on premise for any development over 5 units, and then creates subsets of that for a second loading zone at 75 units, and then every 75 units after that would require a loading zone.
Every 50 units after that.
Sorry, 50 units.
It doesn't address existing buildings specifically or not. There are a number of one-story buildings in town that under this ordinance, if they were, first off, it doesn't affect me and any of the properties that I own. But for any existing building that is one story in the town, would have to have a driveway cut in as the application pending in front of the planning board for the feed bag, prior building, office, retail. The driveway is going to be put back in. A loading area will be put back in. The building where the Asian restaurant is on the park, we're spending so much time talking about the park. The building is for sale, been for sale. With all likelihood, someone's going to come forward and want to put apartments there. They don't have access to the driveway of the hardware store. Chris Jeffrey's building on Lackawanna, the Spin building, Tara, the landlord where you are, you have a back to your property, but unclear whether a driveway loading might have to be put on Millburn Avenue. Unclear whether it's for office space. Maybe it should be. It says 5 units. There's mixed units buildings. I served on the Main Street State Board some 20 years ago. The idea of the downtown is to not have interruptions in streetscape, both for dangerous crossings, driveways, interruption of streetscape from getting from one place to the other, footer building, stream. Why are you going to walk up Millburn Avenue? There's the potential to add maybe 10 driveways to Millburn Avenue. On the Dunkin' Donuts side right now, my side, there are no driveways all the way to Lackawanna. There potentially could be 4 driveways. There's no reason for 5 units. 24 units, 18 units, maybe 36 units, but this ordinance is poorly crafted. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments.
Yeah, hi, 342 Hobart Avenue, Jean Pasternak. I just want to say that I'm fully in support of this ordinance. We've listened for the better part of this year about it, and especially how it relates to the development at 85 Woodland. And I really, really strongly support it. Thank you.
Mr. Cosgrove is on Zoom. He is off of Zoom. He's back on Zoom.
Hello? Are you folks able to hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you.
Okay, thank you very much. David Cosgrove, 99 Oakview. I support this ordinance, and it's nice to finally see the board doing something that supports the residents and protects the residents as opposed to the businesses and the landlords in town. However, my comment on this would be that it's not strong enough. It allows too many units to be serviced by just one turnaround. So I'd rather see that knocked down to about 25 units, meaning a turnaround for every 25. One's just not enough. Thank you.
Mr. Cosgrove. Any other comments?
Comments, Mayor?
Yes.
Unless you want to ask a question too.
Okay, I'll go first. I think there's a big difference between 5 and 75 units. I think 5 is too small of a number to require a cutout. I think one of the complaints about the Silverman project was that the driveway was dangerous. They were afraid of children having to walk in front of a driveway. I believe Wells Fargo is now not going to have a driveway on Millburn Avenue. I think that this does need a relook. I think that with our new planner, I don't know if topology has actually given this any information. Again, I'm saying this is being moved too fast. I don't know if this is the final ordinance as it's written. Again, I'm going to go back to what I'm saying. Procedure with Township Committee should be introduce an ordinance, have time to talk about it, look at it, bring it back after a separate meeting so people from the public can talk about it during open public comment. This is not a rush. I think the fair share housing will have their own requirements. And it's not emergent, it's not a crisis. And I just don't see that now is the time. Someone like Mr. Cosgrove said it's not strong enough. Mr. Heller thinks it may be too strong. Why not have topology, give it a really good look, and wait, make it done right the first time? And that's my comment. I mean, again, between 5 and 75 is such a huge differential. I don't even know why 5 was picked. Anyone tell me how 5 was picked?
Only after you're done, I can start.
I'm looking at you. How was 5 picked? Thank you.
Okay. So I will get to overall the questions and answers instead of just directly answer on that 5 unit. I've heard a lot of different things about this ordinance, and thank you for everyone for your inputs. It was brought in because of multifamily homes. It started from Silverman, where I actually constantly heard, and I was a little surprised that there was no loading dock to that building. Agreed, there were 60 apartments in there, along with the medical. But when I proposed this, and I was the one who actually went ahead, waited for that to finish, and then proposed this ordinance. The description of the ordinance came from the earlier planner. Topology had inputs in it as well, because first time when we got this ordinance, it was said that we should have 1 loading dock in the multifamily home, anything from 5 and above. It went to planning board. They said it was not really clear how much it should be. So they reviewed it. They gave their inputs. It came back. Topology worked on it again and sent it back to planning board, which was 5 to 75 units have 1. Then after that, it'll be 50. Every 50 units will have another one. and planning board looked at it. All of them, if I remember correctly, I think they were in agreement and sent it back to us. So there was a lot of work done on this ordinance back and forth, and nothing is foolproof. And I agree, 5 could be a little lower than what we are looking for. But I can't keep going back and forth on the ordinance. If 5 becomes too low, it's not that this is given and done and we cannot make any changes going forward. So I'm all for with my open mind, but people keep coming back to me over and over again. You don't know this, you don't know that. Guess what, guys? If you know everything, you should run for the township yourself and sit here and do that work, and still you'll be questioned that you don't know anything. So it is overall, I will try my best in doing what I feel is making sense in my head with my limited knowledge and with everyone. Planning board overall has agreed to this. So I don't know I can make every individual happy in the township. There will always be 5 people saying yes, 5 people saying no to it. But I do believe this is by far, I've done everything I could, and this came back from all the professionals. You asked if, not you in particular, people have asked if planner has looked at it. Both the planners, previous planner and the new planner company, they have seen this. They say it's okay. I'm not the professional. I will go with it. And if this makes, and I heard comments today, what about the existing buildings? That's a good comment, and we should consider this going forward. And if there is any changes we want to bring it on, I'm happy to look at it. But this is where I would say is topology. I've seen it. Good perspective. Everything has pros and cons. I would still go with this. Thank you.
Thank you. What happened at the planning board meeting? Did they make a recommendation? What was the final? Because this went to the planning board for review, and what was their determination?
So
I got emailed. Alex, do you have that?
I have the information. It went to planning board where it was 5 and above. Should have 1 loading dock. They came back saying 5 and above, 1 loading dock doesn't make sense. It needs to be up to a certain level, and then it should be more loading docks. So 225 apartment building shouldn't just have 1, it should have more. And that's why it came back as 5 to 75 as 1.
No, I meant the last planning board meeting.
They
The last
agreed.
planning board, no, we got a memo. There was a recommendation made.
No, recommendation was on the other one that was removed.
There was no recommendation.
No, they all
Not to my
agreed, they all voted. I actually wasn't in attendance in that planning board meeting, but I went in and watched the whole meeting to make sure that I'm still making sure their inputs are in there. They only had recommendation on the other rooftop deck ordinance.
Okay, so there was no recommendation. You got a full consensus approval from the planning board.
As far as I think,
On that.
yes, but you can feel free to look at that meeting as well and make your own
We
call.
got,
Graham Petto is also on
Oh,
the line
great.
if you need him, but
Oh.
also remember that this ordinance was previously introduced, then taken off. And so it was previously introduced, sent to the planning board, and then it was taken off. Then it was introduced again, sent to the planning board with again. So it's been through this iteration once before.
great. Can we just bring Graham on for a
Yep.
second?
Can you hear me?
Great. Can you just give us a synopsis of the conversation that took place at the planning board when they got this ordinance in front of them last Wednesday?
Yeah, sure, absolutely. So, I provided the planning board with a consistency memo regarding consistency of the proposed ordinance to the master plan, and it was not wholly dissimilar from the prior consistency report that I had provided. In review of the draft ordinance as presented, the planning board once again reiterated support. The planning board at their first review did support and found that the ordinance was consistent. However, the only recommendation was that they, as Mr. Vinayak said, add additional provisions for larger buildings to incorporate additional off-street loading spaces. But with respect to consistency with the master plan, they found both versions of the ordinance to be consistent with the master plan, as the proposed location of on-site loading spaces will decrease interactions within the public space, will decrease loading that occurs on street for delivery vehicles or other things, that impact the pedestrian right of way and create a safer environment by having loading happen on site. So the planning board was basically in agreement and stuck with their original recommendation with respect to the proposed ordinance that you have this evening.
Okay, great. And do you have any input or comments on the existing buildings in town and how this would affect that?
Yeah, so with respect to existing buildings, the only time that this provision as drafted would come into play is if any existing buildings were adding residential units or creating additional residential units within them. That's where there would be a trigger for the full zoning code to be looked at and reviewed. So if you had an existing building that had, say, 4 residential units and they wanted to add 2 more up to 6, that's where a loading discussion would have to occur. Of course, that would be part of a site plan application to the planning board to review the construction of that addition to that building. And that's at a time where the planning board can look specifically at these sites that may not have space on the property to create loading opportunities. And that's a process where the planning board can be instructive in their approval and, see if there are opportunities within the local area to create shared loading opportunities within adjacent property or other things like that as ways to identify opportunities to create a loading space it would be through variance relief at this point. So by creating a standard, it creates a discussion point and creates an opportunity for the township to have that conversation with the proposed developer for these smaller existing buildings where they would do, possible addition to create additional residential space, if that makes sense.
So, and as our planner, you support this ordinance, you feel comfortable with us passing it tonight?
I think given, the propensity, particularly around the pandemic of, increased home deliveries, for groceries, Amazon, other things that people are getting delivered to these properties. I do think it's an important consideration, particularly for larger buildings to, consider an on-site loading space. There is, much more frequent deliveries as we talked about, and also just to create loading space for, some of these larger apartment buildings to accommodate move in, move out on site, and make sure that that's happening outside of the public right of way and be accommodated in a safer fashion for both tenants of the building and also for township residents as they move throughout the township. So yes, I agree.
Okay, thank you. And will this affect the Silverman project? Does this affect any of the agreements in the settlement?
Yes, so it's important to note that with respect to the settlement properties, they have specific zoning parameters that they're set forth. So a lot of the affordable developments have their own ordinances and their own requirements. This requirement herein that we're discussing this evening would only impact new applications outside that process. And at this time, the time of application would stipulate, anything post-adoption of this ordinance would be impacted as well.
So do we have anything slated that at the planning board that this ordinance would affect in this moment?
At this time, no. There are no pending applications that this would impact. Again, because of the time of application rule, would be anything that would be filed after the date of adoption of this ordinance.
Yeah. So it will not affect, it does not go in to affect on any of the buildings that are coming into town at this point.
Correct. Yeah, this would apply only to new projects and development that would happen after day of adoption.
Got it. Thank you, Graham, for being on the call.
Oh,
with us
wait, can
tonight.
I ask him a question? Graham, it's Diane Eglo. Hi, good evening.
Hi, good evening.
Hi, I really am saying that I think 5 is very low. You just actually said larger buildings need a place for drop off. People aren't moving in and out frequently of a 5 building. We have trucks constantly dropping off everywhere. Are there other towns that have this with 5 as the determining number?
There's been variety throughout towns with respect to requirements for off-street loading provisions. I think what's important here to consider is that, in these smaller, unit configurations, what really the 5-unit concept would be speaking to is more of a mixed use format where you have first floor retail and upper floor residential. And it's in those types of projects that we want to look comprehensively at loading requirements. There may be opportunities for shared loading in those configurations, but I think it will just be important as the board deliberates and discusses new development and in more of this small and medium size scale of mixed use projects in particular that incorporate small number of residential units in conjunction with retail and/or office space to be cognizant of loading requirements for the residential portion of that project. So I think that's why it is important and valuable to keep a requirement for off-street loading at the smaller scales, particularly in that format of mixed use.
What if it's just a 5-unit building with no commercial? They're still affected by this, though.
That is correct. They would still be affected by that. Mhm.
Okay, so this is where I think, we're coming across, in my opinion, some discrepancy, because you just said it's important if it's 5 units with commercial, but if it's just 5 units, people have a 1 or 2 or 3 year lease. They're not moving in and out. Everyone's getting packages delivered. I just don't agree with the 5 as the set number. And I just don't agree for a few reasons. I don't agree on the way the ordinance is written, and I don't agree with the procedure and the way it's being done. So thank you.
If I could just expound a little bit, just to clarify one additional point. The only place that, a 5-unit building would be permitted would be within one of the business zones. So that's where, I think that we'd see more conflicts with respect to loading. And that's where I think it may be an important consideration to think about loading within the business zones. No 5-unit building would be permitted by right within any of the existing residential zones as they're currently configured with respect to permitted uses.
No, I understand that, Graham, but residential space is renting for more than commercial, from what I'm understanding. So somebody might choose to just build a small 5-unit apartment somewhere and not have commercial. And then they're going to have this big cutout goes into the property line, correct? It comes off the sidewalk, off the parking. Where does this go? Can you explain that?
Yeah, I mean, that would be very site specific as far as where that loading space would be required. And again, the board can go through iterative discussions with the applicant in each case. If an opportunity to create an on-site loading space is not provided, the board can go into a negotiation process, and as part of any resolution of approval, require that the property owner and developer enter into a shared use agreement to locate a loading space offsite, and provide documentation of such an arrangement to do that. But without the opportunity to require a loading opportunity, that chance to create that negotiation process is not available to the board as they consider that.
Okay, so last question. If someone's building a new building, they actually have to put the loading space in front of the building where would normally have parking spots, let's say downtown. So you're giving up parking spots for what may or may not have a truck coming by once with FedEx, or maybe somebody moving in. So you're actually giving up potential parking spots in our downtown, which we're
So the requirement is for the loading space to be off street. So it needs to be on the site. And there is, requirements for parking to be, located on the property within the township. So this would be an interior spot, not taking off an on-street parking space or something, or creating a loading zone on the street. That's not what this ordinance is doing. This is requiring, that space on the property be provided to create an area for loading to be done off the street right of way and on the property itself.
Okay, well, that wasn't clear. That helps clear that up. Thank you.
You're welcome.
What is happening right now? Thank you, Mr. Petto. Just another question while you're on the call. Did lower than 5-unit or 5-unit as a lower number, did that even come up in planning board? Because I did not hear that.
That was not discussed, as far as the lower end figure. There was much more concern regarding the higher end figures, as far as creating additional spaces at higher values. Mm-hmm.
Okay, that's fine. And as I said, if this becomes an issue and we keep getting applications in planning board or zoning board and people are suffering through this, we can always present as an update version of this. But I feel comfortable even more now. Thank you, Mr. Petto.
Yeah, you're welcome. Happy to entertain any other questions if anyone has any.
Does anyone else have any other questions? Yeah.
Just to, if I may correct Graham, to Committeewoman Eagle's question. The building built next to the post office, the former Londrigan house. You've been here for 100 years, not you, but your family, longtime residents. We lost 3 parking spaces when that building went up with that massive driveway. There's a parking space missing on either side of the driveway and the driveway. We have a curb cut. I think 4 apartments, balconies in the downtown, not a deck, but balconies. That particular property, what's going to be going up on footnotes and have balconies, they fortunately have a parking lot on the rear side. But that's not the case. We're going to lose parking. We're going to have driveways. And I was at the planning board. Planning board did not discuss it. Graham also said he did not discuss existing buildings. So you're going to change the downtown. The Main Street, downtown New Jersey, everybody encourages not having curb cuts. When needed, we should. And if it's 5 units, 8 units, 12 units, there's no urgency to do this today. We haven't discussed the possibility of apartments or offices being added onto existing 1-story buildings. Thank you.
Yeah, I just want to add, the longer this gets delayed, the more people are going to come in with no loading docks. And the 20-year ago Main Street presence on whatever he's talking about, it's so outdated. I mean, the ramping up of deliveries and all this stuff has been absolutely exponential over the last 2 years. So to not do this seems insane to me. So thank you for putting it forward.
And all of these applications will be going to the planning board. So, no, that's a question. Like,
You want to bring Mr. Petto back again? Because I may not have your answer.
okay. Graham,
Yeah.
So-
Just to clarify that question. So, any site plan development, for new construction or additions to a building, yes, the planning board does have jurisdiction. Should there not be any use variance relief related to that? If there is a D variance that's sought, a deviation of use or, any other things that are specific to a higher test threshold of the D variance criteria, that would be at the zoning board, but it would be at one of the 2 land use boards.
right.
Here.
Nothing slated that this is affecting. So
That's correct.
there is no rush, but this isn't set in stone and will be looked at as each application comes in. Would you say that's correct, Graham?
Yes, that's correct. Yeah, and to the committee's point, we can certainly provide advice, as to what we're seeing and experiencing, and if there are any negative impacts, we can certainly discuss that, with the boards and relay those back up to the committee.
Great. Okay. Any other comments, questions?
Yeah, as I said earlier, there's always pros and cons. Ken, there is no side I'm taking. I'm just trying to do what I feel is right. In my mind, based on the information and knowledge that I have, it could be off, but I'm still going to go ahead with this ordinance. And it's again, not in favor of one person and not in favor of another person. So thank you. If you're okay, Mayor, I'll go ahead and move.
Please.
I move that this public hearing be closed and the ordinance be adopted on final reading, and that the township clerk be directed to publish the ordinance by title as passed in final reading in accordance with law.
May I have a second?
Second.
A roll call vote, please.
Ms. Miggins,
Yes.
Ms. Eglo,
No.
Mr. Vinayak,
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Wasserman,
Yes.
Mayor Prupus.
Yes. We are going to take a 5-minute recess.
Yeah, it's really, stand up straight. But that, I hate it. Yeah, so, I'm recovered. It's okay. Yeah. They're okay, yeah. You know, big studies for the impact, so we'll see what happens. I You know, we just got, minor subdivision approval, we subdivided the property. Worried that our house is gonna close out now. So basically, to lay that under themselves, they wanted us to basically put in swale and rain garden and all this sort of stuff. It has to be deed. You probably know all this stuff, has to do with the soil conservation district. Well, our house is on top of the hill and it's perfectly flat, but all the surrounding properties are the steep slope. And there's, you know, there actually are, landslides with planted piles. Yeah, yeah. So, I understand that the neighbors are concerned, but our geologist was, or geotechnical guy was like, there's just no way. Well, maybe, because the one objector directly next door to her is, one of her relatives, and they did a massive addition on their house. And surprisingly, no one's talking about the hill, even though they were on the slope directly adjacent to the objectors. Whereas, because we're at the top of the hill, kind of far removed from the house. And probably I would say something, but I think that it's still found. Sorry, it's still found. So we'll see. So we hope to break ground in March. Maybe this time they'll do. Yeah. Yeah, it's beautiful. Yeah, it seems very good. Brian, how are you? Yes. Anyway, thank you. Thank you. Thank you. And by the way.
Oh, that would be amazing. Thank you.
Okay, old business. Do any of the committee members have any items of old business to address? I have a few that I'd like to bring up. I don't remember, I think it was in the beginning of this, I guess maybe in the end of November, the beginning of November, when Christine Bugle came and gave us the report on restoring the second lane back from Wells Fargo to Town Hall. I think it's important that we revisit that with input from Topology, our planner, Steve Brillo, the executive director of the SID, our emergency fire department, our first aid squad. I know that, hold on, I'm gonna take a sip of water. I know that the Beehive litigation settlement is, or was settled, and that they are submitting their plans back to the planning board. So there will be a number of cars now coming out onto Spring, going onto Essex, coming out Douglas. And I think it's important for us to have 2 lanes there and to continue through Town Hall, and just be restoring what was taken away during the first phase of Complete Streets. So with the committee's consent, I'd like to task the planner to come back to look at it. I would like to get Steve Grillo's opinion on it. I would like to get the emergency vehicles opinion. I would like to continue that conversation. I think other opinions and perspectives need to be part of it. It's a conversation that we've been having for a while, and I'd like to see it keep moving forward. So I don't know if anybody has any thoughts to getting those other perspectives on the matter, and to keep it moving.
Is it, could you tell me a little bit more about what it was before, how it was? Essex and Millburn, they both were 2 lanes?
When you came out onto from
both
Essex, yeah, it was, there was 2 lanes.
On both Essex as well as Millburn, the 2-way traffic?
No, we're just talking about Millburn Avenue. So from Douglas, not Essex. So
2 lanes, not
right in front
2-way.
of Wells Fargo.
Well, it's 2 lane you're talking
2
about,
lanes.
not 2-way traffic.
No, 2 lanes, the
Wells
second
Fargo
lane.
coming in
So Christine, our engineer, looked at it, and she had some input. I think it needs to be a larger conversation with different people's perspectives on it. I think it's an important, our planner wasn't a part of it. I just think we need to broaden it and say, okay, we have Christine Buell's information. I mean, this is something that we've all been talking about for a really long time, and I think it's important. I think it's going to be even more important as we add more multifamily residential units into our downtown.
I actually, my concern, and Christine brought this up, is that you can't just do it. I think you're right that there are other considerations. She had some safety considerations. If you put in the 2-way, that cars could, swerve from lane to lane. And also there was an issue, there was a specific issue that if you are going to consider 2-way traffic, that width has to be wider. And you certainly, and I certainly want to make sure that this is thought out where you don't have to do construction twice. So I'm not saying, I'm not necessarily saying don't do it. I'm just saying that Christine brought up, if you, in thinking about it, she brought up some very specific security issues or safety issues, and also some construction issues in terms of what that would have to look like if we did eventually do 2-way traffic as a longer thought.
Right, but 2-way traffic is that. I mean, it's circulation, and it's a longer thought out. And not that this would be 2, but I think other perspectives need to come. I think we need to hear Sid's perspective and Steve's, he should be part of it. We should have our planner part of the conversation. So in order for us to kind of keep that moving and to have emergency vehicles like fire, police, I'd like for them to comment on it too.
And I just want to make sure that Christine's concerns.
No one's gonna,
Concerns are
of
addressed
course.
as part of this, because from what I heard, she had specific concerns about cars swerving back and forth, and in terms of the spacing. So
Right, and our traffic engineer. I mean, I would like,
Yes,
Christine is not,
right.
I mean,
She
that's,
is
she
a
is
traffic
a
engineer
traffic
too.
engineer.
She has that qualification.
Credential. Yeah,
But
she does.
and she was
as you
also,
said, let's
yeah.
look at I'm in support of at least looking at what it looks like with 2-way versus, or 2 lane versus 1 lane. We can
Right,
look
so
at that.
can we
absolutely.
have, Mr. McDonald, how do you want to organize this?
Well, Mayor, may I just, can I just say, we also should be putting our traffic consultant. I realize Christine Buell is a traffic consultant by training, but we also do have a professional traffic consultant on call
Yes.
for this. So we should have 2 people, another person look at it. besides the planner. It's traffic, it's circulation, it's things that we have lost with the complete streets. And as far as swerving, well, they're not gonna start be playing like, bumper cars.
I mean, there were 2 lanes there before. And I don't think this, I mean, I could be wrong. I don't know if the swerving was the problem. So
That was one of the concerns
No.
from what I remember. I'm just saying, I want that.
no one will forget the swerving. So, Mr. McDonald, can we task?
Again, I keep hearing that Christine is not a traffic, but
She is.
you yourself, no, but you yourself was talking about traffic, they wouldn't be going in and out so quickly. You're not a professional either,
Oh, I don't know who you're talking to.
so, no, I am talking about whatever was discussed just now. So I think just shutting somebody off by stating these things, I don't think that makes sense. So if you want to look at it, it's all good and we can see it. But whatever Mr. Wasserman is saying is not wrong either. So I'm all open to see it, but just belittling someone or just not being respectful, I don't think that is something that we should do.
Can I make a suggestion? Maybe the traffic, maybe our traffic consultant can work with Christine and report back. In terms of, my main concern is just from a safety.
I think that is given.
Yeah.
I think we're all concerned about safety. I mean, I think that this is just an important thing that we need to look at more than just having, because Christine also said other things and that safety wasn't the only point. It was just one point. I just want to have a larger conversation about something that we as a community have been talking about for a number of years. And I think we also should look at what the impact of that building is going to be there.
I also believe in Ms. Bugle's report, there were some positives. It wasn't just negatives there, because I remember saying to her, oh, your report's not all bad. There was actually a lot of positives she did find in bringing the 2 lanes back.
So I don't know, as a process standpoint, Mr. McDonald, how this works, but I would like for our planner to look at it, our emergency police and fire, and I would just like some input
Okay, so
onto this to help us guide the conversation.
I think at this point, what we can do is have the conceptual plan, not her report, but the conceptual plan that was prepared by Ms. Bugle, given to those groups that you've just stated, and ask them to opine on what
Oh, great. Okay.
what that is in addition to, and I think once you get to that point, then it will be important at some point to have someone that, whether it's the on-call traffic engineer, to take it a bit further and understand what the impact to the traffic in that area will be.
Right, with the
But
new
we can
development.
certainly,
we're talking
well, with everything, with going back to 2 lanes, with the timing of the light at the intersection of Millburn and Main, all of that.
Okay, great. The second thing of old business, and this is a kick question, and Mr. Falcon, at the last meeting, I expressed my concern over the 75 unit, 100% affordable housing development. And I'm wondering if it's possible for us to take a revote on the settlement.
I'm sorry, to take a revote?
Yeah, to take a revote on the settlement. For us to have a larger conversation if this is what people in Millburn want and what the other options are. And what could be done other than just moving forward with the 75 unit, 100% affordable housing development at the DPW site. I know for one, I learned so much by sitting on the subcommittee and talking to 10 developers And going through that process, I wasn't part of any of the mediations. I was recused. I wasn't part of any of the conversations. And I don't think that this is okay for our community. And I think that we need to talk about it. And I'd like to take a revote, and I would like to know what the process of doing that is. Is that something that we could have consensus and then take a revote on the settlement? I mean, how does something like that work?
Why are you thinking on that question,
Well,
Mr.
excuse me,
Falcon?
Mr.
Because
Vignoyak.
there was a statement made that was wrong. I'd like to correct it. Ms. Purpose was recused for one Annie Says building. She was on
I
all the
wasn't
communication.
part of any of the mediations. I
all the
never spoke to
meeting-
Fair
Let
Share
me
Housing.
finish.
No, you
All,
let me finish.
she was in
You
all the
interrupted.
meetings that I was part of. So I guess this is the only thing I wanted to correct. The recused part was just for one building for her. Other than that, every meeting that I attended, she attended too.
And those were all updates on what was being told to us from the professionals. I never once spoke to Josh Bowers.
Similar to
I
me.
never once didn't. So I don't know
I just
why
wanted to correct
you.
it.
But we
Well,
voted,
excuse me, I asked Mr. Falcon a question. When you do that, I give you the respect for him
This-
to answer you.
If
Do
the
I not?
statement is wrong, I'd like to correct it.
You can't correct my statement.
It is
Mr.
wrong.
Falcon, can we vote? Can we have a revote on this?
I
That is my
tend,
question.
I tend to think not, but I will take it under advisement.
I mean, we've seen.
A revote of the settlement agreement would potentially mean reopening the case. And I don't think that there's an opportunity for that, but let me look into it.
Okay, I can appreciate that. And I respect that and I appreciate it. And thank you for looking in for that. And that's something that we can have conversation with in 4 days. Do you feel like we can circle back on that? How would you like to proceed?
Well, we're going to be, after this meeting, having a closed session, which will include your counsel in the case, Ed Buzak. That can certainly be among the topics which are related to what we're discussing.
I mean, the way that it was sold to me was that we have to do this. We have to take the 100%. And I do not believe that this is what's best for our community. And Mr. Wasserman, I know you stand behind it, you signed it, you're
you
all
don't
for
have to
it,
speak for me. I can speak
but
when
you're
you're
trying
done.
to cut me off. So
I'm not,
please don't.
I didn't try to cut
Okay.
you off. You please
I would just
continue.
like to speak like
And then
that.
I'd like to speak after you.
There was a process followed whereby the township committee designated a team to participate in the mediation and report back. And it was all, it took a long time to develop. But I won't say absolutely not, but I think it better to take this under advisement and perhaps even raise the topic with Mr. Buzak, as we are going to be in closed session to talk about this very case after your meeting tonight.
And
Okay,
I'm
well,
with
that
Ms.
sounds good,
Purpose on
Mr.
this.
Falcon, and I really appreciate you getting back to me with whether or not that's a possibility.
Mayor, may I have the floor permission,
Sure.
please? My first year on the committee, I sat in Mr. Vinayak's seat, and next to me in Mr. Washburn's seat was Mr. Tillotson. And Mr. Tillotson was a very tall man with long arms. And Mr. Tillotson was constantly spreading his arms in front of me and interrupting. And people said, why is Mr. Tillotson always mansplaining? I have found this year, we have not been in concert because there has been some back rooms, but Mr. Vinayak, you seem to think it's okay to constantly interrupt me and Mayor. So I think it's something that we can work on for next year. And this mansplaining and interrupting and overspeaking women is just not okay. It is no longer acceptable in the climate we're living in, as we all know, of something else that's no longer acceptable in this climate. Thank you, Mayor, for the floor.
I learned it from you, Ms. Igloo.
Okay, that is so appropriate. All right, you know what? I'm gonna move on to my next matter
can I
of old
just-
business. You can't comment right now. We want public comment at the, yes.
I'm sorry. I would just, I understand, you're asking for advice from Kit as to whether a revote can take place. I think that, and this is something that perhaps the committee can can discuss a bit further in consultation with Ed Buzak. But, I just want to make sure that as you're tasking the attorney to do research and figure out whether a revote can take place, that you guys, and it seems like there is, but
I'm
that
not
there's
sure that there
consensus.
is, but that's a good point because we are trying to.
Correct.
So do I have support for that so that Mr. Falcon can come back and let us know if it's possible for us to take a revote?
Yes, from Committeewoman Eglo.
No from Deputy Mayor.
No from me.
Okay, so I wonder then, how does this work then? So I won't even know. I mean, I won't even know. We as a community won't know if we could take a revote. I mean, this seems absurd, but brings me back into my next point.
We have a settlement
Is
agreement.
we have a
that you voted
resolution.
for.
Wait, excuse me, I'm speaking. Man, that phrase is awful, but I am. Can you just wait for a second? Thank you. So I want to talk about process because there was a resolution on the planning board. They all voted, it was 7-1 vote last Wednesday night. Committeewoman Miggins was the only one who voted yes on this ordinance that was tabled. And then yesterday at, 2 o'clock, 3 o'clock, I received a resolution that this is going to be on the agenda and we're going to talk about this. So somehow, who gave direction? Like, what was the process? Who gave direction for us to go spend money with Mr. Falcon? So I'm glad you brought it up tonight.
Mhm.
Who gave you the direction to then go write that resolution that we then pulled? I mean, so much is happening that I know nothing about, have nothing to do on, and I will stand that, like, the fact that we can't even know if we can have a revote on the affordable housing settlement. But who gave you the direction to write that resolution? How did that happen?
Well, the committee got the report, I gather, from the planning board
Or I got the report yesterday. I'm talking to Alex because someone had to direct
on Monday.
Mr. Falcon, someone had to direct Alex to talk to you. So how did you know that there needed to be a resolution about the ordinance that had to ban the rooftop decks? How did this happen?
I will provide an explanation to you, Mayor.
And a timeline, please.
So, when I learned that on Wednesday, well, it would have been Thursday, that the planning board, found the ordinance to be not consistent or inconsistent with the master plan.
Yeah.
I asked the question, to others in the office. I was not directed by anyone in particular. But knowing that we had gone through this procedure several times when ordinances have been voted for, being inconsistent with the master plan, and then a resolution had to accompany the next version of that ordinance, the second reading, which had already been advertised, which had already been approved by the majority of this committee at the December 7th meeting. That is what prompted the writing of this
That I
resolution.
didn't see till yesterday afternoon.
That's
And then I had
correct.
a phone call from Committeewoman Miggins this afternoon. We're gonna pull it.
I can't speak
So
to
all
that,
this
but I'm
work is
just,
being done. I have no idea. We're spending this money to get all the ordinances right, the noise ordinance, do work on it, pull it, never get passed. But right now, I'm asking to know if we can take a revote on the affordable housing settlement that none of our community got to be involved in. And that can't happen. It's crazy. So, but that's all I have. So is there anybody have any new business for the township committee? Okay, public comment period is now open.
Let's
No,
go back
I
to, I
just closed
support
it for
her
public comment
in
period.
finding out whether we can revote or not.
say,
Can the attorney find whether we can revote or not? Whether we revote or not, that's up to us. But let's find out.
fine. I mean,
Great, you've just got direction. So, Mr. Falcon, please let us know.
Is that
Yes,
okay
for the
to say
third vote.
yes?
Thank you, Committee Vignaya.
Okay.
You're asking them to do legal research on a topic that has to have the support of the committee. It now does,
Great.
therefore it will be done.
Amazing. Thank you so much. Now I'd like to go on to public comment. Does
Well,
anyone here like
how
to make a
about the
public
new
comment?
business?
Oh, do you have new business?
Yes.
Oh, sorry, I thought I said that. Great. What new business would you like to talk about?
I didn't hear you saying new business. Is that-
I did, you were talking over me, but it's okay. What new business would you like to talk about?
Okay, so 911 dispatch, which we moved 4 to 5 years ago. It could be 6, it could be 4. Again, we moved it out from our township to coalition or collaborate with 2 other towns, New Providence and Summit. And we made that decision because our infrastructure was getting out, or our infrastructure wasn't really in place. And since we have a small town, it was made, or it was thought through that if 3 other towns similar size or maybe smaller than us get together, they can have better infrastructure, better efficiencies, and provide better services for probably lower cost. Being on the finance committee, when I came in, I looked at all the budgets, and I looked at all last 3 years' budget. Now, I didn't look at everything, but this was one of the things that I saw. And I've also looked at other towns. We have about 20 to 22,000 population. Millburn Town is not a very big town. I agree on the gist of moving it and collaborating, get the better infrastructure, having 3 towns overall paid together and get this done. Last 3 years, when we had this in our here in-house, we were paying about, or it was costing about $850,000. Again, these are not exact numbers. It is close to those numbers. Year over year, the cost has been increasing over there. And for 2021, we have paid $1.3 million. Now for 2022, I saw the budget, or I heard the budget, that it is going down to 1.1 or a little under 1.1. We have looked at, and there are a couple of options. I think this is the time where we look at our options, where should we bring that back in-house? We have looked at companies that actually do this for you in your own town. And that would approximately cost about $1 million a year, but we'll have to make our infrastructure with $1.3 million spent, which is now down again for 2022, down to 1.1. But it could pay back for the infrastructure cost to bring it back. Again, we will have to keep managing our own 911. So infrastructure-wise, we are poor. Then the next thing to do this is, what is our other option? And we have looked at other 911 dispatch services that has better infrastructure, do more towns. They have mobile office. In case of emergency, they can use mobile office. And right off the bat, the cost is much less, in line with what we used to pay in town for our own stuff when we were doing it internally without the good infrastructure. And they could do that for approximately $800,000 a year with 2% increase for 10 years. So I don't know which one is the right call or right decision. I think it's high time that we look at our options, what our options are, while keeping our obligation for the current contract that we have with the 3-town coalition with New Providence and Summit. In no way I'm saying that get out of that coalition and drop them or just leave them hanging. We should do our contract, but we should also look at our options of what makes sense. Again, this is one. And second is the courthouse. Another new business is our township, more than 70% cases, or even more than that, is from mall theft or shopliftings. And all of them are heard here. These are small things that they get trialed for in our township courts. And I have gone to Atlantic City. I've attended seminar, the government seminar, where they have joint courts, where they have shared courts. And it's not just the cost or efficiency purposes, it is also with the infrastructure of those courts. because people who get caught on this, they have just started doing those or getting into those habits. If corrected, then they can actually lead a normal life or a better life. And joint court has that infrastructure where they call on these people and talk to them, making sure they're going for their service, they're doing what they were supposed to do. And the judge has pushed them to do it. So as a small town and as a service that we are doing, our residents hardly go to those courts. They pay it online if there's traffic ticket. If there's a bigger crime, it goes to county court or other courts, superior courts anyways. So I'm talking about, we need to look at what is efficient for our town while keeping the service the way it is or even better, but doing it at a more efficient way. So my call today is to look at our options on making sure that we are doing the right thing.
So on the first meeting, thank you, Committeeman Vinayak. In December, we actually had a presentation. I was kind of wondering what happened to this, so maybe you can let me know, because one of the things that the mayor does is I sit with Mr. McDonald and Ms. Gaddy the Wednesday before the Tuesday meeting and set the agenda. And then it goes out to the rest of the township committee, and sometimes things just drop off. So I think that happens by 3 people saying that they don't want it on. So we had our current joint 911 slated to come to present to the community in the first meeting on December. And I know this is something that Committeewoman Eglos, she sits on that board and has been asking all year for them to come present. Mr. McDonald, what happened to that presentation? How did that why didn't we do that?
I think you explained the part of the process effectively.
Oh, so we wanted to have the current joint 911 come and explain to the community what the operation is, for us to meet the executive director so that she,
correct.
right? And
But-
she just got hired there, right? And that she could talk to us about the operation, about the services. I mean, I'm glad you're bringing it up for sure, but I'm amazed that you killed the presentation at the first meeting. The 3 of you did. And why we couldn't have had that. You wanted to have this conversation. I don't know why we didn't have the presentation.
When you're ready, I can respond.
Okay, so there's that, and the other thing is, I mean, we also, Committeeman Vinayak, we talked about the shared court in the beginning of the year. I mean, we were all looking into this, and then we ended up with Maplewood, and the last I heard when I was sitting with the president of South Orange, the mayor of Maplewood, and we were talking about a shared court. And then all of a sudden, I go, Alex, what happened? They like the judge. No one wants to get rid of the judge. So I'm amazed that this is the new business that you're bringing up at the end of the year. And I don't know if you were so gung ho about the shared court and exploring it, why we didn't talk about it earlier, except apparently we like our judge, and Mr. Millburn judge, we do like you. But that's no reason that we should not look at it and explore it further. And really, we should have had the joint 911. What?
Can you talk about this amongst yourselves?
Oh, you guys are done. You're done.
Did you talk about this for yourself or for us?
Oh, wait, hold on. Okay, so I know we have a process and we have to stop. So you will all have your time to speak. I just didn't understand what the hand motion was. And so I'm done. I'm done speaking about it. I would love to have our current 911 joint commission, the executive director, for her to come and give a presentation about our current operation so we can ask questions and our current services before we talk about anything else. And I think we should bring that back on the agenda. I'm done.
May I speak to that?
Please, yes.
So everyone knows, I said it multiple times, I was 15 years on the first aid squad, and I was on the first aid squad when they brought the joint 911 together. And it was Chief Roberts who was instrumental in this because, as you said, Mr. Vinayak, our infrastructure was no good. We would have had to spend hundreds of thousands of dollars to do so much work in our police station and our antennas. we have relationships with small town, with our neighbors. This is something people who have lived here a long time understand. These relationships from the fire, the police to the EMS are crucial. We are each other's backups. If there's a call at the mall and we're on another call, Summit comes for us. The fire, there's multiple engines answer. We've already cut back by $300,000. So, you keep saying you're on finance. Some things are more than about the dollar. And Millburn, thank God, is a very comfortable town. We have a nice capital fund reserve. I don't know where you ever got the idea. When you said, we have looked into this, I'd like to know who the we is. And I have been asking for our 911 to make a presentation. Then it got bounced because of COVID. She was on the schedule. And now I'm finding it's because my 3 committee members decided she should not have come in here. That doesn't make any sense. And we have a really good joint 911. They provide us incredible service, relationships. This is about public safety. And when we had Ida and there was 1,000 calls coming in and there were some calls that were missed, let's be clear, and Mr. McDonald can back me up on this. If we had we had just the dispatch in our town, they would never have gotten to all those calls. There was just not enough people. The calls were just coming in crazy. So you can investigate this. I know that we have a very good joint 911. They also, another problem they have is hiring people. You bring this back into Millburn, you have no way of knowing if we're going to be able to cover these calls. So no, I am not interested right now in just even investigating. And I think before you do, we need to have Mr. Roberts and Stephen Roth from EMT. The president, he's been on the first aid squad, 30 years. We need to have these other people come in and make a presentation and have the public understand what we provide to our residents is paramount to why people choose to live here. And Mr. Vinayak, for you to talk about saving a couple $100,000, which the cost has come down, is not a valid reason.
I just want to say something. I think it's important we do bring in the 911 people. I do. I wanted to, and I still want to, and I hope we do that in January. I think that the agendas of the past few months have been so packed that to sit here for 5 hours or 6 hours,
The last meeting, actually, we got out early because we didn't have that agenda.
But they've been so long, these presentations, but I am more than happy. I think we should have them come in.
Sounds like a commitment to me.
It is. Please do.
With Mr. Roberts.
I know, he's a great guy. Bring in
Mike
Mr. Roberts,
Stephen
bring in
Roth.
every stakeholder. It's important for the town.
And the chiefs, Etchkavaria and Gilfetter. These are the people who know what the service is, what we get, what we provide. These are the people who know more than any of the 5 of us know. And something's not always about dollar and cents.
I'm actually just waiting for you to stop moving your hand and stop talking, then I can talk. So
Oh my God,
I'm
Mr.
fine.
Vinayak, please.
just let me know when you're done, because you were done and then you started
Mansplaining.
again.
Mansplaining, go ahead, Mr. Vinayak, I'm finished.
Yeah, and I'd like to add that we would I think from my perspective, that I'd only like to consider, a 911 that is the same or better service for the community. So it's not just about dollars, it's about better service. And I think that's something that's paramount. And just because we're considering a change doesn't mean that it's worse. It could also be better. So.
Okay, great. So we have consensus for the presentation to happen.
You have something to say
Oh,
also.
Okay.
So I actually made that comment because I wanted her to know as well that what she says is not correct all the time. She is one of those person as well that she does it herself. Cut people off, move rounds around again.
Okay, we're going on to public comment.
Again.
Public comment. We're
Guys,
moving on to public comment. This is over.
There is another,
Vinayak, this
there
is
is another, I'm still talking about that 911 dispatch.
We're gonna have the current 911 come give us a presentation. That's what the consensus was.
She made some
It is
comments. I'd
now
like to
time to go
answer
to public
them.
comment.
I'd like to answer them.
No one wants to hear it. They want to speak.
It's not,
They want to speak.
it is our meeting, and since we are meeting 5 of us, they are here to hear. If they don't want to hear, that's fine too, but This is our meeting, and again,
Okay, please, you guys,
On the-
let's try to get him to complete and then. Please,
on the process, meeting process, this is 5 of us ever meet, is this meeting. It is us meeting and public needs to be there. So when I talk, so when we are talking, this is our meeting here.
okay, can we, let's.
On the backups for summit and relationship,
You got it.
guys,
I'm Gab,
Well,
I'm
just-
not, I- okay, I can do that. Public comment. All right, public comment, who's up?
Jackie Benjamin Lieberberg, 36 Kilmer Drive, Short Hills. We live in a highly partisan world rife with division and discord. As a former mayor and township committee member, I know firsthand that disagreements over issues will exist amongst committee members. We can't agree on everything, and often the exchange is healthy and enlightening. However, there is no place for name calling and vitriolic attacks among the township committee members. It's hurtful, and it does not further the mission of the township committee nor the interests of the township. What I find most appalling has been the personal attacks against Deputy Mayor Richard Wasserman. A longtime resident and successful businessman, Richard has dedicated his time and effort to make Millburn Township a better and more inclusive place to live at great sacrifice to himself and his family. A man of high character, among the greatest strengths are his decency, integrity, empathy, and his ability to bridge divides and seek agreement among disparate groups. It was a privilege to have worked and served alongside Mr. Wasserman during my time on the Township Committee, and I continue to work with him on CETA, and we both serve on the Board of Trustees of Explore Millburn Short Hills. Each of these organizations have added immensely to the community, and I am proud to work alongside Mr. Wasserman. Quite frankly, the world would be a better place with more people like him. Finally, I think it would be beneficial for the Millburn Township Committee to implement this code of ethics policy. Casting aspersions, public displays of acrimony, and name calling should not and will not be tolerated amongst the Township Committee members. We are a community of Millburn Short Hills. We all need to treat each other with respect. Professional decorum must be observed at all times. It is my fervent hope that you will begin 2022 with new respect and professionalism. Thank you for allowing me to speak. Happy holidays.
Thank you, Jackie.
Thank you so
Who's
much,
next?
Jackie.
Yes. If you're new, you have 3 minutes, state your name and your address. Right, you have 2:30 and then you get 30 seconds more.
Hi, David Patrico, 454 Long Hill Drive. I'm here to talk about the 11 Main Street development, the affordable housing project. I'm not all that informed about it, so I can't say everything I'd like to. I think that's the biggest part of the issue. I saw the last township video stream on this, and to say it was chaotic like this evening is not an understatement. I walk around town and I ask the businesses, I ask the residents, do you have any idea what's happening? They do not. So we've talked tonight about the inclusion of the citizens of this town, about rooftop housing and the way cars park, and can 2 cars drive down the street and run into each other? Do we need Amazon drop-offs for 5 apartment units? Should we have an archway walking into Taylor Park so we can have more fun? This project dwarfs all of those in its significance, and the comparisons are not even close. I am an incredibly inclusive person. My wife emigrated to this country 30 years ago. She became a citizen probably 15 years ago. My children are biracial. I am all about inclusion and getting more children into the school system that we have and the resources that we have. And anybody that knows me knows that to be the case. That said, this is a major project in a key portion of town. It's going to impact the town in terms of development and traffic. And there's lots and lots of things to discuss that are way more important than I think a lot of the things you're all discussing right now. Most important to me is we're taking 75 units. I don't know how many people will live in these units. And it looks like we're sticking them on the single most contaminated piece of land in this area. You've had 36 years to deal with this as a township. And I have talked to the people in the municipality about what is on that ground, what has been stored under that ground, what has been paved over multiple times. I don't know what this is going to cost to remediate. It's going to be into the millions. Okay, I'm an investor. I know how this game works. We sit here and say, well, it's an 1,100 page report from the EPA and we'll just get a Cliff Note version and share with everyone. Would any of you raise your children on a piece of land that had an 1,100 page EPA report that needed a Cliff Note version so we could understand what exactly was underneath there? If it was given to you, you wouldn't raise your children. You wouldn't walk your dog on that property. There is land everywhere for this to happen. Could we put something else there? Something that would drive revenue so we could have more than 75 units in town and make it more inclusive and let more people go to the high school and maybe disperse these folks amongst us so they're not all living together. I don't even know what this thing looks like, but I am telling you, I'm making people aware of it. As they hear about it, they're furious about it. And if the media gets a hold of this and realizes the 36 years after this process began, we are sticking those people on that site with oil storage tanks underground and coal and everything else that has been there, you're all going to regret this decision. So I don't know, Mayor, whether it's a revote, I don't know whether it's a reconsideration, but handing it to a consultant and sliding this in the middle of the night without public commentary. I watched the last video. I was appalled by your behavior. Oh, the clock's running out. We have to do it. Nonsense. They're human beings. Do it the right way. What I'm seeing so far is pathetic.
Judy Rosenthal, 97 Main Street. I'd like to speak to flooding issues in the town. I commend you all for looking for solutions, but you're failing to consider the source. There's recently an article in the New York Times that described the flooding in Millburn, and it talked about the water rushing down the South Mountain. What's going on at the top of the mountain is Joey DiVincenzo's pet project of the zoo. He is now considering expanding further into the reservation in order to create the new Asia exhibit. He has built a parking lot in an SE flood zone directly on the banks of the, one of the, I don't know whether, the reservoir. Every year he has another pet project and he is expanding into that reservation continuously. The reservation serves as a sponge. We now know what happens when you degrade the reservation to the point where much of that sponge is gone. He's got to be stopped, but you can't do it alone. I am urging you to contact the mayors of Maplewood will be very receptive. The mayor of Maplewood, I don't know if she's still there, maybe she's the former mayor, was very, very active. The environmental commissions of Millburn, Maplewood, South Orange have all issued resolutions condemning further development of the reservation. You have to go to the source. We're now at the point where we're past tipping point. There have been millions of dollars of damage in this town. People are not going to be able to sell some of the homes that were flooded because it's now, it's all disclosed. This is serious, and you've got to go to Joey DiVincenzo. I know he's a scary dude. He has tremendous power. Most of you are Dems. I realize the political ramifications of this, and I know that it's a very tough position for you all to be in. But if you join with other towns and you present as a block and you present all the environmental problems as a result of overdevelopment of the reservation, you may be able to get someplace. But thinking that, we'll do this in Millburn, we'll do that in Millburn, it's not enough. It wasn't enough on when we had Hurricane Ida, and it's not going to be enough. You've got to go to the source, and you have to be a block of towns. You can't do it alone. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Should we go to the Zoom calls?
Hello, Dave Cosgrove. Can you hear me?
Good evening, Dave. We'll come back. Well, yes,
I'm sorry?
No, I was just letting people in the room know that we will come back to people in the room.
Gotcha. I thought you were cutting me off already. I hadn't said anything yet. I'm
No,
kidding.
no,
But But at any rate, folks, thanks for letting 99 Oakview Terrace, thanks for letting me speak. First of all, a comment on the assignment to Mr. Falcon to research whether you can get out of the settlement agreement. Folks, you're wasting your money. All of 5 of you voted unanimously to approve that settlement agreement, and there'd be nothing but a lot of heartache and pain if you tried to back out of it. So I can tell you can save a lot of money by just not researching that. That's the answer. The second part is, as I'm sure you can imagine, I'm disappointed about the deck ordinance not being addressed. I'm also disappointed about the noise ordinance not being addressed. So I'd like to see if I could get a commitment from any one or all of you on when those are going to appear to be passed. Because right now, every time they come up, someone has an excuse and it gets a pocket veto and nothing's happening. So could I get a commitment out of someone in this group, hopefully all of you, on when it's going to be on the agenda? Thank you.
Thanks, Mr. Cosgrove.
Hi, can you hear me?
Ken, good evening.
Hi, I'm sorry if you can't hear me very well. It's Matt Stewart, 58 Wellington Avenue.
Yep.
I've been following the last hour and a half. I was expecting there to be some conversation about the roof deck ordinance this evening. Evidently, it's not going to be discussed, but I'm not sure if it's appropriate for me to ask or not, but if you could just let me know. I guess it was tabled or something or withdrawn. Can you just help me understand what the status is of that particular piece of legislation?
Committeewoman Miggins, would you like to respond?
That was withdrawn earlier today at the beginning of the meeting. So, Mr. Stewart, if you weren't on at the beginning of the meeting, that was withdrawn.
Okay, so just because I'm a bit of a unfamiliar with the terminology, when you say withdrawn, meaning what? It was tabled to another date? It was withdrawn permanently? What does that mean?
I think I can answer that. It's finished for this year. It's not tabled to a future date. If it's going to be taken up again after some further analysis, as has been suggested, it will have to be reintroduced and it will start from the starting point.
Okay, so great. So it didn't pass effectively. That's the right conclusion?
It did not pass.
Great. Thank you. I think that's a great decision. Thank you.
Yes, there are some people in the room. If you've already spoken, please let other people have a turn.
Good evening. My name's Al Carlin, 246 Millburn Avenue, Apartment E, Millburn, New Jersey. Happy holidays to all. And an item I brought up last year. Parliamentarian. People ask questions of, can I do this? Can I do that? Of Alex, who knows, and our attorney. Why not have someone here who's impartial, who knows it, and just say, okay, this is it, and cut people and cut you off and say, no, this is the person to go to, and not waste it any other time. First of all, I think the committee people should have the basic knowledge. As I said last year, it's the 11th grade. A lot of people do know they're in the 11th grade exactly how a committee should be run. I've been to other townships, and this is the way it's done. What the mayor can do and say, this is the way it's done. It's just makes a meeting go more smoothly. And a parliamentarian I've seen him say, stop, you can't do that. It's not the way, and it's all over. And then it's not this debate, can I or can't I? It makes it happen. Real simple stuff. I mean, when I was in Washington, this is the way it's done. You have a parliamentarian there. Can you do this or can't you do this? This is easy. I mean, first time I was in Washington, I was 12 years old to see Mr. Deloonian. And I kept on going back and back. That was my fault. But that's the way it's done. Other townships, that's the way they do it. As far as affordable housing, it's very important. Other townships say, you know, we want to disperse because it's nice to have affordable housing here and there and other people, not everyone clumped together. That's in some townships, they feel that way. That's why I mentioned, you know, nothing has community meetings because, you know, she's a real estate agent. Will it affect her sales of people having property in one particular area? No, it's because it was brought up in another town of a real estate agent being on the committee. That's why I brought it up as conflict and of a judge. That's why I brought it up. Capability, absolutely positively no. As far as something else, as far as taking rules and regulations, very, very important. And I thank Jessie because she took care of an item that I've been going back on for a year as far as ordinance. If there's a violation, violations should be addressed. A violation can be serious. I mean, concerning fraud. Fraud is a crime. That's stealing. I spoke to some people today and they said, yes, if you don't get permits, that is a crime. It's stealing from the people of Millburn, and it should be reported. Whether they are guilty or not, that's something else, but it should be reported. I spoke to the Attorney General's office and they agreed with me. You may not, but I feel it's important. Thank you very much and have a great day.
Thank you. Thank you. Happy holidays. We're going to go back to the phone and not take second comments from in the room right now.
Good evening. Thank you. Sarah Sherman, 42 Greenwood Drive. I am a member of the Flood Mitigation Committee, and I would like to add a little more to what Deputy Mayor Wasserman said earlier and Committeeman Vinayak as well. We have a very talented group of people. There are 3 engineers, actually 4 engineers in addition to Ms. Callahan and John Rushke. We have been at locations in South Mountain and around the town with the town engineer, with the county engineer. The committee has visited the locations where the drainage projects have been suggested, and the residents have met with us. We have been in their backyards over and over again. In addition to that, we had a virtual meeting with residents on home elevation. I would also add that these 3 drainage projects were proposed after Hurricane Irene, and they never came to fruition because we couldn't get easements. So the issue of easements is one that is critical, and we will all on the committee be working on that. I would also say we're learning a great deal about solutions for flooding. For example, I've been asking about retrofitting homes, my own, for example, and we are gathering information for that. So engineering projects don't come together in 2 months. It takes a while to survey, to study. As soon as we are shovel ready, I think the committee will be ready to go. And we're certainly very hopeful that that will happen in the very near future. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Kirsch?
Okay. Can you hear me? Can you hear me now?
Yeah, good evening.
Good evening. Phil Kirsch, 93 Cedar Street. First of all, I would like to just endorse what Ms. Rosenthal said, because I know we have people working on flood mitigation. It just seems that, you know, a big part of this is where it's coming from. And I really don't see how it'd be very tough for Millburn to survive another episode like happened after Ida. But the main thing I wanted to address was really something that the former mayor addressed earlier, but I'd like to address it in a more general way. I did find it reassuring to watch the committee debate tonight without animosity for the most part until the end, after a couple of really tough meetings. I think that, you know, we're all in an environment with COVID. I mean, I can see this in nuclear families and amongst us, that everything gets ratcheted up. Everything tends to bring out our stress. Everything seems to get elevated. But I think in a time of stress, I think particularly for leaders like the five of you as township committee members, it's really important, that much more important in a time of stress to generate calm, as an example. In a time of division, to strive for unity amongst yourself, to discuss without arguing, to differ with respect. I think, like I said, I can't emphasize how important that is. And I think at the end of the last meeting, I was more concerned about the town governorship than I had been in all the decades I've lived in town. And not because of any kind of incompetence, not because I felt that anybody was hiding anything or lying, but because of the animosity that was going back and forth among some of the members. And I think I wouldn't point to anybody in particular. I think it's the responsibility of all of you to really keep this in mind as you start the new year. As someone said, the five of you will still be up there, which I think is a good thing. I think you're all competent, and I really value your service. And I respect that you all seem to be independent thinkers, which is very good. But that's all the more reason why you need to communicate with each other. It sounds like sometimes one member doesn't know totally what the others are doing. And I think that communication is really important. But most of all, that you remember yourselves as individuals and as people, as human beings, and treat yourselves with respect and be that much more productive and set a good example for all of us in the township. So again, I thank you for your service and how tough the year has been. And I wish you happy holidays and hope to see you after the new year.
Thank you, Mr. Kirsch. Mr. Morial.
Hi, Jay Morielli, 1 Claremont Drive. I too would like to express disappointment on the rooftop deck ordinance. And I say that because I see it as just another case of resident concerns not being addressed by the committee. I'd like to remind the committee this past June, the committee voted unanimously to eliminate protections for residents in the B2 and B3 zones in Glenwood from noise, odors, and litter associated with restaurants over the objections of numerous residents. And in October, the committee opted not to protect residents from noises that result from restaurants, and other commercial establishments by modernizing our nuisance noise ordinance like over 100 other municipalities in New Jersey have done. Commercial buildings in the B2 and B3 zones are mostly less than 50 feet from residential properties, and in some cases less than 5 feet. Allowing restaurants and other commercial property owners to put rooftop decks that are less than 5 feet from the backyard of residents would have a huge quality of life impact for residents. Creating an ordinance also does not mean that exceptions cannot occur. There's a process for that when the situation merits. What an ordinance does is allow residents' concerns to be heard by the zoning board, which then makes a decision. And a majority of variance requests today do pass through the zoning board and are in fact approved. I ask that the committee, going into next year, reconsider many of the requests from residents to protect themselves from commercial properties and the impediments and quality of life issues that they bring. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Morale. Okay, we can go back to people in the room who haven't spoken yet. Yes, please, just come up, state your name and your address.
David Niles, 97 Main Street. I understand that the committee is considering revisiting the builder's remedy settlement. And I would just caution that settlements are strongly favored under the law. And I've enforced them both in New Jersey and New York. And my wife, Judy Rosenthal, has spoken earlier. She's currently getting an award of legal fees in connection with the motion to enforce the settlement where the other side backed out on her. So I would just be very careful, because a sudden change of heart could end up with a sudden large payout for the township.
Thank you.
Good evening, Perry Ursel, 514 Millburn Avenue in Short Hills.
Well, it's been quite a year, 2021. Despite our differences, I must say I do appreciate all of your time, as I hope that you appreciated my time as well coming here and just asking for you to listen, to have a conversation. We're having a lot of conversations, but no one's coming forward. No one's willing to try to come to some type of commitment or an agreement. So coming here tonight from Upper Millburn Avenue down to downtown, it looks beautiful. Unfortunately, the other 4 districts have not been afforded this beauty of the lights of the holiday season. Yeah, I still have the same 5 snowflakes that I've had in 28 years. Why can't we have proper public participation? Why can't the Township Committee reasonably allow public to freely speak their comments without interruptions? But then again, whether we speak 3 minutes or 30 minutes, you never listen anyways. It is evidence that your minds are already made up. Based on the MK Taylor Park presentation, once again, benefits the downtown. Due to the location, look, I'm not stupid. Taylor Park is where Taylor Park is, but the attraction is downtown. Which brings me to the following statement. I notice the SID budget is not on tonight's agenda. So how much will the assessment be for the 4 other districts that will be responsible to pay for the primary benefit of one district? Also makes you think how the SID will be operating January 1, 2022 without an approved budget for calendar year 2022. And pending litigation on the validity of this entity. But yet, once again, you approve payments to the township attorney who hasn't or won't provide a legal opinion. Why are you not requesting Falcone and Mazzariti litigate instead of mediate? They do the work for we, the people, right? Based on the exorbitant amount of these fees they are charged to date, in my opinion, it's my opinion, you would think that the township attorneys are not working for the best interest of our township, but rather the TC's agenda and themselves, while leaving the other 4 districts behind. Lastly, to go to this gentleman's point, doing things through the night or not getting public participation. Lastly, we have a local channel, cable channel with no content. I was driving on South Livingston Avenue, where you'll find a billboard from the town of Livingston advertising broadcasting of their meetings, but yet you still refuse to afford the township its local news channel for the annual range somewhere to 30 to 40,000. Sadly, you will need to be reminded that these fees are collected by the township and added to the general fund, which is funded by subscribers through the collection of finance fees from Comcast and Fios. Currently, the amount received to date by way of Oprah is over $264,000. Why do you refuse to provide this service to our community? All surrounding towns, to name a few, Summit, Maplewood, Chatham, Springfield, Westfield, and Cranford all utilize their local access channel. Why not Millburn? Why are we not giving back to the citizens? Do not forget, everyone doesn't always depend on social media or has access to their computer. Your actions prevent those who either cannot attend or have sufficient means to participate. It is essential that the population is enabled to view all proceedings reflecting what's going on in this town by way of TV, internet, and that's what real transparency is. Thank you and have a nice evening. Enjoy the holiday. Happy New Year. Thank you. Oh, okay. Does anybody else want to?
Jean Pasternak, 342 Hobart. I think there's some themes that we heard from people here and from your consultants and so forth. There's a lack of civility. I think everyone's acknowledging now that there's a lack of acknowledging our right to, as members of the public, to speak, our constitutional right before decisions are made, before you spend our money, before you change our quality of life. There's a lack of buy-in by the community to a strategic plan or a vision or whatever it is you want to call it. We haven't been given a chance to weigh in. And there's an inability to make major shifts in things due to the impact, the final nail in the coffin on flooding with Ida. Got to change. I think people are waking up in the community. They're coming out from the COVID impact and saying, wow, what's happening? I think we heard very loud and clearly that there's a few people that really follow what's going on here, but the rest of the community has been asleep and they're awakening and they just don't like what's happening. So it's time to pivot and time to really listen. One thing I'd like to add is, some specifics, the big picture, it's getting lost. I mean, you said, Mayor Prupus, that there's a sense of urgency, that flooding was the top priority. Nothing else was coming ahead of that. But yet you weighed in tonight for a long time about two-way parking, flex parking, pats on the back. You said it was a very personal project. Yep. I think you confirmed what we all thought. This Taylor Park Gateway. Yeah, I mean, it's exciting. There's something there, but it certainly doesn't even light a candle to the whole flooding issue. And then this business about Ms. Eglo, rush, rush, rush. Yeah, exactly. Why are we rushing? Why aren't we focused on what are our top priorities? Good question. I want to just summarize by saying what I've sat and listened to this year: selective listening to selective campaign contributors, selective property owners, and selective residents. It's really time to change that. Everybody needs to be heard, no matter who elected you, who didn't elect you. We are all a community. We have to work together. Spending on a stream of projects, consultants, and litigation. We're not a bottomless pit, whether it's money or our emotions or our quality of life. You're spending on us, our money, our thinking, without consulting us. And it's become very personal now and emotional. And I think people really want buy-in. They want you to listen as a group. You're here next year. Yes, you are all here. You were reelected. But I think you've heard enough from this community that you really need to listen. And that's what's missing. I have one specific thing on Resolution 21-332. There was a collective bargaining agreement approved. What is the cost of that CLA over the 4-year period? It'd be nice to know. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Truitt is on.
Good evening, everyone. Again, thank you for your service. And before I forget to say happy holidays to everyone who celebrates holiday this interval. I'm not going to reiterate the comments other commenters stated regarding the rooftop deck. Of course, I am also very disappointed that the public hearing was canceled at such late notice, and several other people were looking forward to commenting. But just one more thing, next year's a new year. I don't know if there's going to be new leadership or not, but I hope whoever makes a decision regarding the format of the meeting, I hope you will consider allowing the public to comment prior to voting. And also, if nothing else, allow the public to comment well in advance of the 3-hour mark. There are people who have reasons that they may wish to comment earlier in the evening. And I hope that you would be interested in hearing what they have to say prior to any decisions, and just wanting to hear what they have to say, period, in the interest of good public discourse, democracy, and knowing what your constituents want. Anyway, thanks again and happy holidays. Bye.
Does anyone else in the room like to make a public comment? Oh, okay. So this is wait, hold on one second. This is the final time for anybody who has not yet made a public comment to make a public comment. Okay, no more public comment. You are our last public comment.
Super brief. So with regard to there will be.
Well, okay.
Ladies first. Sure. Okay. With regard to the public hearing that will be had for 11 Main, what is the date for that? Am I allowed to ask a question by the way, Mayor? Is that okay?
You can ask questions. We don't answer them until at the end.
Okay, so there will be a date coming up in January. I know that I want, how will people be made aware of what that session is? January 12th? Thank you. Thank you, Mayor. How are you going to get the message out to folks? Because the only thing that I hear consensus on is we're running out of time. We can't undo a settlement. We hired a consultant. We're going to hide behind her. That's my interpretation. People need to be made aware of what's happening so they can opine on this. So how are you going to reach out to the community and let them know so there aren't 6 people there and this thing slides through at 11:30? Because I think that's what some people on this panel are hoping happens. Thank you. I don't want to be disrespectful, but I really think it's important.
I hear you.
Nancy Stone, 10 Fielding Road. and 266 Essex Street. I am just trying to recap the year. I am, to say disgusted, which I had written to you in an email, Richard, to say the least is an understatement. I have to say, I never thought I would say this, but I would quicker like to see Tara, the mayor, again over Richard. And you know how I feel about you, but that's how unprepared he is for Diane to have to file a complaint against him, even though you said it in jest or however way you said it. It's appalling. And for you, Jackie, to get up here and defend him as opposed to a woman who made the complaint is even more appalling. The three of you have the power to make that decision next year. And you are actually the swing vote, Maggie. And I would love to see, frankly, you be the mayor, to have some adulting in the room, not to mention some sort of decorum, because that's what we need here. But I can tell you that I do not support your mayorship, and I certainly don't support your deputy mayorship that you're going to be vying for, because without the backs of Maggie and Diane, the two of you would not be sitting in the seats that you're sitting right now, because nobody knew who the hell the two of you were before these two women, because they have built the reputation and they built the credibility. So the three of you as women, I hope you stick together, and I hope, in spite of how I feel about you, which is not pretty, Diane, in spite of the fact I feel about you, Tara, which I have to say, you have grown into the role this year, and I applaud you for even trying to retract the affordable housing settlement. That was a great move on your behalf, but the three of you need to bond together and show how great this town can be. It's enough already, because we're going to have this 3-2 shenanigans for the next year. That's what we have to look forward to. And I've been doing this for 5 years, way longer than you were involved, actively for 5 years, but I've always been active in the community, and it pains me not to be active on the Explore board, pains me to be active on any other committee in this town until you guys straighten yourselves out. So I hope you end up being the mayor, a second choice you, because you should not have filed the complaint and you shouldn't have said what you said.
Any other comments? Anyone else want to make a public comment? I want to close public comment. I have 2 points that I would like to address. Mr. McDonald, can you please explain, we've talked a little bit about the public information session. Can you please explain how we are going to send that out? We're going to use Swift.
Correct.
And can you explain that?
And we have sent it out on Swift twice at this point.
I did not receive.
I'm sorry.
We did not.
It was on the newsletter.
In the newsletter.
Correct.
But it needs to go
Correct.
out.
So it'll go out on a separate Swift. It's on the website as well. And we will continue to communicate that.
Is it on
a few
Facebook?
times. It is.
It went out on Facebook.
Yes, I believe so. I'll double check
We should
that.
just do another round.
Yeah, we will do that.
Then my second question is, can you please respond to Ms. Ursula's point about the TV channel? What?
Yeah, so I mean, it's actually a fair point in that we have difficulty managing that TV channel because we have one person managing social media, the website, all other communications, the signboard outside and all that stuff. In most communities, the communities that she named off, they do have a small committee that works on that.
Oh, so like we could form a subcommittee.
Or you could have a citizen committee that works on it as well.
Form like a citizen, okay.
Yeah.
Okay. All right, I'm trying to help you.
I would not
I'm trying to
suggest
help
that only because we spent a significant amount of money on HGTV for bulletin board service.
Okay, wait, hold on, please, let's not interrupt. Okay, please stop interrupting. Oh my God, Ms. Urso, please, we want to get through here. Can you please? So let's go back. We could have a citizen committee who would run this.
You could have them run it. You could have them, help with content. You could help. Yeah. But it has to be something that's sustainable because there are, SOMA has a really active group.
So we had a chance, at one point
We still have a channel.
We still have a
Yeah.
channel. We just don't put anything on it.
We put very little content on it and haven't put,
Okay, so we have Jess, who's awesome.
Mhm.
I just want to take the moment to thank the entire town hall, all the employees in town hall for being great, because they are. But Jess can't handle it on top of all of her other responsibilities.
correct.
But could Jess manage other people, or would this be something that would just be citizens?
I think it would just be far better to form a group that is interested in seeing the advancement of that and then figure out how to
How did
get
it
there.
used to be run before we didn't?
We hired HTTV to put together bulletin board content. That's it. And they also put up the township committee meeting because they used to also tape the township committee meeting.
Okay, but we still have that channel and we can broadcast our Zoom, so we don't have to have someone in here filming.
Yeah.
That's possible. Yes?
Correct.
That we could broadcast our Zoom on that channel.
Correct.
And then we have so many citizens who want to be involved. We had over 60 volunteers. We have had the most people in our community this year submit volunteer interest forms. And we have the most talented people in our community. So let's put them to good use. And I don't see a reason why we can't have programming on the channel. So I don't know if we need, it's at the end of the year. Maybe we can talk about this tomorrow, boards and committee assignments. Possible? That's it. We can do that in closed session? Great. All right. Does anyone else have any other questions or comments? All right. I want to wish everybody a happy holiday.
Wait, I'm sorry.
Whoa.
I was gonna go last, but I'll go now, real quick. So it is uncomfortable, to everyone's point, to hear us fighting up here. It's like a family, families fight. It's uncomfortable. And as far as I did put a complaint in against Mr. Wasserman, I will not address that. It is on Millburn Patch, and you can see it on there. It was just something because I had no choice.
Okay.
And happy holidays.
That all being said, I'd just like to wish everybody happy holidays, happy new year, and we will see you all back in January. Motion to adjourn.
Second. Motion.
No, you go to closed session, Mayor.
Oh, no, just kidding. We're going into closed session.
No, we're not. Just kidding.
Okay.
Yes. So everybody knows the camera and the video is still on. Microphones.
No, to close after the closed session. We have to come back here and close the meeting. I think so.
Great that you're here.
Hi.
Oh my God, she's already great. Oh, wow. I saw you somewhere. No, but I saw him, I know, at the October Fest, I saw him in the tennis court. And I think I friendship. Oh, wow. So you're my neighbor. You're my neighbor drive, and you're on. Yeah. Nice to see you.
Yeah, he's dead, 7 months old.
So is your daughter?
No, she.
No, good yet.
I'm not. I want.
Yeah. Don't you now? They're all home for COVID. Oh, you're so tall. So they're all home for COVID, and they're all
one's getting a master's in special ed, and the other one is just getting an undergrad psychology and get the kind of stuff. Yeah. Oh, they're in the 20s. That's fine.
You're not sad, like, oh my girl.
No, she's not.
No, but you know, I know it's antiquated, but you still it's there. It's not paying for it. I understand that by accident. That we can't tell you that you're.
Yes, I am. It was a long time coming. I should have had it done last year. Thank you. Merry Christmas.
So, what's your Christmas? You know?
My mom.
Oh, God bless her.
Yeah.
We're not equipped. We need a park.